Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly board session. It's Wednesday, October 29th, 2025. It's 9:04. We're here in the Commissioners' Center Hearing Room, 555 Court Street, Northeast in Salem. We start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you'd please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a few folks signed up for public comment, and I want to make sure everyone gets some time. So, Commissioner Cameron.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I move that we do the consent calendar first in front of public comment.
Okay. Go ahead and move that.
All right. Mr. Chair, I will move the consent calendar. First item under board committee appointments, Mental Health Advisory Committee, approve an order appointing Sharma Owens to the Marion County Mental Health Advisory Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2029. Under board appointments, again, Materials Management Advisory Committee approve orders appointing Ken Hector as the Urban Citizens of Marion County representative and Michelle Tisdale as the Rural Citizens of Marion County representative to the Marion County Materials Management Advisory Council with terms ending October 29th, 2029. Under Business Services, approve a public improvement agreement with the Cedar Mill Construction Company, LLC, in the amount of $774,500 to provide construction services to bring the Marion County Jail Pod exercise space into alignment with accreditation requirements through June 30th, 2026. Under Finance, approve a special procurement to extend a current contract with Can-Am Technologies through November 1st, 2026 to support the teller point of sale POS system. It's going to be a long one because we didn't have one last week, right? Under Health and Human Services, approve amendment number 2 to the purchase order with Redwood Toxicology Laboratory to add $300,000 to a new PO total of $900,000 and extend the term due to February 15th, 2027 for drug testing services. Under Human Resources, approve amendment number 1 to the service agreement of Absorb Software North America, LLC to add $57,160.47 for a new agreement total of $110,581.47 to extend the term date to November 30th, 2026 for licensing, maintenance, and support for the Enterprise Learning Management System. Item number 7 under Human Resources, approve a broker services agreement with Brown & Brown Insurance Services in the amount of $114,228 to conduct a comprehensive review and evaluation of employee benefit programs effective January 1, 2026 through December 31st, 2026. Under Information Technology, approve a purchase order with CVE Technologies in the amount of $205,757.43 to replace equipment that is at the end of life as part of Marion County's Life Cycle Equipment Replacement Plan through October 31st, 2026. Also on Information Technologies, approve a purchase order of CVE Technologies in the amount of $165,000.43 for the network hardware and software maintenance and subscription renewals. Under Legal Counsel, we don't see those very often. Under Legal Counsel, approve an order to adopt revised Marion County Administrative Policy number 212 and procedure number 212A, County Litigation Defense. Under Public Works, approve an order for the vacation of 2 strips of public right-of-way located in the subdivision plat of Lone Fir Addition and the property deeded to Marion County in Reel 401, page 319, as described in Exhibit A and depicted in Exhibit B. Also under Public Works, approve an order to remove a 15-ton vehicle weight restriction on a portion of County Road Reese Hill Road Southeast between Devon Avenue Southeast westerly to the intersection of Liberty Street Southeast. Approve amendment number 1 to the construction contract for the North Santiam Paving Company to add for a new contract total of $825,310 for additional mobilization and general excavation of the North Fork Road slide repair at milepost 3.0 project. Still under Public Works, approve an anchor easement with Portland General Electric for a non-exclusive perpetual easement and right-of-way for real property as described in Exhibit A and Exhibit B and depicted in Exhibit C to move an existing pole to a new location for the Mill Creek Bridge Replacement Project. And finally, under Public Works, approve a contract for services with ProStar Security LLC in the amount of $125,000 to provide year-round security service for the daily opening and closing of gates at multiple Marion County parks to reduce after-hours vandalism and misuse of park resources through October 31st, 2028.
I second the motion. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Catch my breath and I'll say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
That motion passes. Unless there's any objection, we'll go back to public comment now. And first up is David Beam. David, are you here? Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record and let us know what's on your mind.
My name is David Beam. I'm a spokesman for disability people in Oregon. My friend, my roommate passed away last night, 6 o'clock last night. I was there when he passed away, so I was telling the commissioners, Cameron, today, we need to look at the system, make it better for the ones that passed away. Some people that are supposed to be helping them. So I was wondering if we can set up a better system for mental health for Marion County. That's what I'm asking for.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
If we can set it up for next year,
Yeah.
set up a system there for all the foster homes for Marion County.
David, my prayers are with you, as I said outside this morning, and thank you for being here and sharing that with us, and we'll share
I
that
went
further.
to school with him. He passed away last night.
Yeah.
6:30.
It's always hard.
Yeah. I'm still hanging in there,
Yeah.
doing my
Praying.
best.
Yeah, let us know if we can help.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, having me here. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. Okay, next up I have Denise, and I don't know how to pronounce this, Giesman. Welcome. If you could just introduce yourself and where you're from for the record.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hello and good morning. My name is Denise Giesman. My husband and I live off Maclay Road on 78th Avenue in Salem. Many of us are here today to talk about a proposal by the VA, the Department of Veterans Affairs. The VA has proposed a project to acquire 307 acres of farmland on Howell Prairie Road in the unincorporated portion of Marion County known as Maclay. The VA would convert that property into a national cemetery for veterans. I learned about the VA's proposal on October 16th. The VA published a letter called an environmental scoping notice in late September. The southeast corner of the property that my husband and I own is just over 1/2 mile from the northwest corner of the proposed location. So yes, this could have a significant impact on our home. I'm here today to share some of what I've learned about the process that is required when a federal agency wants to buy or develop land. This is called the NEPA process, N-E-P-A, and I just want to talk through my understanding of the steps in that process. No, I am not an expert. I don't have any experience or training. I just have studied it since I looked at that scoping notice. I have 3 goals for this morning: to share my understanding of the NEPA process based on what I've learned since I read the scoping notice. Number 2, to try to answer the question, where are we now in the process? To try to answer the question, what are the next steps in the process? And if there's time, maybe why did the VA pick this parcel? I can't answer for sure, but I have a few clues. So I read the scoping notice, and there were three statements that caught my attention. 1, the VA is preparing an environmental assessment to assess the potential environmental impacts of the proposed action. So this EA, this report, is already in the works. Next, it said, the VA is seeking input from stakeholders as part of the scoping process in the development of this document. That seemed interesting because usually I would think that the scope would be defined before they start the report. So how does that work? I'm not sure. But then the VA stated that the EA is being prepared in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, and in accordance with the VA's NEPA regulations. So they're different, but their EA report is supposed to address both the national and the VA version. So I dug into the National Environmental Policy Act first. That's NEPA. I was looking and I found a very helpful guide. It's called A Citizen's Guide to NEPA, dated January 2021. I have a copy of it and I can leave you my notes after everybody speaks. In the Citizen's Guide, and I'm going to call that the generic federal process, because this guide talks about NEPA from a federal process perspective, but it also indicates that each agency completes their own studies. So in general, the NEPA process is outlined, but then again, it'll be the VA who actually composes this project. But in the Citizen's Guide, the first question an agency asks is, it's more like a filter, yes or no. Do we need to follow NEPA in this? And if it's minor repairs or they're just fixing an existing structure or if it's a real emergency, then the agency doesn't have to follow NEPA. Okay. For a 307-acre acquisition and change of purpose, a new cemetery, yes, they need to follow NEPA. Okay, that's done. If a NEPA is required, the first phase is the environmental assessment, or EA phase. The Citizen's Guide states that the EA should be developed with public involvement to the extent practicable. It generally includes a 30-day period for comment. After the EA is complete, the agency determines yes or no. Are there significant environmental impacts? If there are no finding of no significant impact, they have an acronym, FONSI, F-O-N-S-I, no significant impacts, the project could move forward. If yes, there are significant impacts, the project goes to the next phase of the process. That is the Environmental Impact Study phase, EIS. So I just want to repeat that. You go into the EA phase, environmental assessment. If there are no significant impacts, the project can go forward. If there are, the next phase is a more in-depth study. I want to mention a couple highlights from that process. The Citizen's Guide mentions that the federal agencies can use the NEPA process to comply with other environmental regulations, such as Endangered Species Act, National Historic Preservation Act, Environmental Justice Executive Order. So agencies coordinate all this stuff in the EA process because it's just more efficient. The Citizen's Guide mentions that each year, federal agencies prepare thousands of EAs, but only hundreds of EISs. So many projects get through the EA phase and don't need to go any further. But I guess some do. The regulatory requirements for an EIS are more detailed, which is helpful to know. So many projects go through AA, not as many go through the EIS. But in summary, the big takeaways from this Citizen's Guide, not necessarily in this order, NEPA is a general requirement for federal agencies, but the Citizen's Guide explains that the agency, in this case, the Department of Veterans Affairs, actually completes their own analysis and follows the processes required by NEPA. The agency completes the environmental assessment. If there are significant environmental impacts, the agency completes an environmental impact study. And the Citizen's Guide also states that the agency includes the public during both the EA and the EIS phases.
Denise, I apologize, there's lots of people signed up here, so if you could kind of take another minute or two, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. I tried to find similar guidance for the VA's process, and there wasn't something as thorough. What difference did I notice? One thing is that The Veterans Affairs publication states, if there are substantial issues and/or public controversy at the EA phase, then the process needs to go through the completion of an EIS. So public controversy is enough of a flag to require more study. So in summary, yes, the Maclay Cemetery proposal needs to go through the NEPA process, and that is what we're in now. They have started this, they've asked for public comment, but they do many of these every year. We don't need to necessarily tell them, oh, you need to look at FPPA, Federal Farmland Protection. They know that. We need to make sure our voices are heard, express our interest and our concerns. There's an address for people to respond to that. And then the next step will be that the VA releases their draft EA, and we need to review that. There's only a 30-day period for comment. If we provide things they haven't thought of, they could revise that draft EA. Then we will look for, after the public comment, if there's no significant impact, they could move forward. If there are, they could move forward with the study. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to cover. The only other piece was why here? Why did they pick this location? And what I found yesterday was on the VA's website, there's a similar but different process or project that went through Chattanooga, Tennessee. And when I looked at the documents there, it indicated that for Chattanooga, there was a proposal, an FBO. They were looking for business opportunities. They posted a notice looking for land for the Chattanooga project. I would imagine they had to do the same thing in Oregon. I haven't been able to find that request for land, but my skills on that sam.gov website aren't good. But it would seem that they had to request possible pieces of land, and this one was proposed. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Jim Stenson. Is Jim here? And I just asked, because we have lots of folks that want to give their comments, that you keep it as short as possible.
And while you're coming to the microphone, I would just like to add that the Board of Commissioners is fully involved in this, like invested in, we've heard all the emails, and we had staff at the community meeting that happened recently that we got a summary on. We've submitted a letter to the Department of Veterans Affairs. I literally am talking to people who are now on furlough in the President's Cabinet. There are people who are involved trying to figure out how to become a partner to us, but because the government is not functioning at the federal level, I cannot talk to the person in charge of this project. But I assure you, it is something that we have escalated and we will be diligent to engage in. So if you're providing context to us, we know what's going on very, very deeply, and we are involved. We have in our letter, I don't know if you all saw it, we said, thank you for choosing Marion County, and we would like to help you find other property. So we are a partner in that, and that's our goal, is to help them find a final resting place somewhere else in Marion County, hopefully, or maybe a neighboring county that has agriculture land that's not abutting people's backyards and farms. So just so you know.
Welcome.
My name is Jim Stenson. I live right off of Maclay Road. I guess my question would be, can the federal government come in and take over eminent domain, even against, the local government? The impact that I'm going to have on me and my family is the amount of traffic that's going to be on Maclay Road. That would be one of the main access routes from I-5. So coming down Maclay, you're going to be going through schools, sections where the speed limit's 20 miles per hour. You have bus stops that are going to impede the traffic flow. You're going to have trash trucks that you're going to be sitting behind, waiting for them to collect trash on Maclay, because that is, they do stop the traffic. And also, as I understand that there's going to be thousands of plots in this facility, and what's going to happen when it starts to fill up? It's not just the the amount of services that are going to be done, which I understand is like averaging around 8 per day during the week. But what's the impact from people visiting their loved ones as we get into the thousands? So it's just going to have a tremendous impact on Maclay Road, which is right now controlled by stop signs. There's only one stop light at Cordon. The rest of it is all residential and windy roads, and it just doesn't make sense. So that's going to push all of the traffic to come from the other way, which seems like it's going to be requiring a lot of impact on the infrastructure and have roads widened. And I mean, it's the amount of impact it's going to have on our little community that's kind of a nice little bedroom community and quiet, and it's going to turn it into a thoroughfare. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioner Bethel, you are the chair. Would you like to take over
I'm happy.
running this meeting?
I'm happy to take over.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yeah.
just so all the testimony that's being given to us here today as a Board of Commissioners, that make sure that the people are documenting that and putting it in written form for.
To the VA.
To
right,
the
'cause
VA,
they're the
right,
decision
and
maker.
especially when the
Yeah.
draft comes out. Right, thank you.
Yep. Jim Stinson, and then after that,
No, it was just him.
oh, sorry.
That was Jim.
Mary, I'm not sure how to say your last name, so I'm not going to try, but you can tell us. Great, and then after that, looks like, what do you think that says? Something in Karen, Mark. So whoever that is, you're on deck. Go ahead. And if we have a 2-minute limit, and we just need to try to narrow it down to that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mary Butchvarova. My husband and I have lived at 8269 Jordan Street Southeast for 23 years on a 7-acre property. And we just received a conservation assistant grant from a Marion Soil and Water Conservation District to restore the riparian habitat along one of the headwaters of the Pudding River, which begins on our property. So thank you. I've actually never been to a Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting, and I've never even been involved in my community in any way in the 23 years I have lived here. But this issue is of serious impact on all of my neighbors. I do think it makes sense to add another national cemetery in Marion County to add to the 4 that are already along I-5 in Oregon. But why one so large? The Willamette National Cemetery is some 200 acres. Why in an unincorporated rural area on 300 acres of prime farmland? The EFU designation is meant to protect the rural nature of Oregon and resource lands for farming, and establishing a large cemetery is in clear contradiction to its goals. It's also in a sensitive groundwater overlay zone. With normal project proposals, there would be an assessment of, quote, whether it will adversely affect the sustainability of aquifer production in a specific area, unquote. Golf course level maintenance and irrigation with all of its chemicals would clearly clearly affect the sustainability of our aquifer production. My neighbors already have issues with their water supplies. Honestly, this cemetery would not personally affect me. Yes, we are the closest house to the cemetery on our side of Jordan Street. We look directly out on the cemetery. But we have a deep and productive well. So it's not going to be us that loses water. It's going to be my neighbors who don't have water to drink, bathe, or do with dishes. We have a 1/4-mile long driveway, so it's not our property that's going to be taken when they have to widen the roads. Yeah? I'll be upset when they cut down the dozens of mature, endangered native white oaks that line Jordan Street. But it's not my property that's going to be taken. You all know that we have 30 feet from the center line that is owned by the county. But that's not going to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic in either direction, a small shoulder, and the wide and deep ditches that are necessary to manage the water and the seasonal flows. So in conclusion, I would encourage the VA to take a whole Oregon approach. A smaller cemetery in Marion County would be great. Additional smaller cemeteries, the size of maybe 50 to 100 acres that are, as in Boise and Spokane, would make sense to serve our veterans who live in Eastern Oregon. Maybe 3 of them would be an excellent choice, instead of making one 300-acre cemetery in just one little location near Salem. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right. Karen, is it Mark?
Yeah, I'm going.
And I apologize. Great.
I'm gonna give my guys to the next person.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here. I assume that you're in opposition of this cemetery, just for the record. Okay. Thank you. Heather Crosser,
I'll also give my time to the next person.
and you're also in opposition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Carolyn Foland, if I'm sure I got that wrong, but
I'll give my
okay.
time to Tina.
We'll just jump to Tina. Carolyn, are you?
People before me.
Carolyn, are you in opposition?
Yes.
Wonderful. Greg Anderson. Yes, sir. And then after that will be Bill Ulrich. Okay, you'll be after Greg.
Hi.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much. So I would just say that I'm positively inclined to VA cemeteries. I come from a long-standing military family. So,
Introduce
I
I'm
understand.
sorry, you'll need to introduce
I'm
yourself.
sorry,
sir.
Gregory Anderson, 8269 Jordan Street, Southeast.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I come from a long-standing military family, so I understand they're important. So even though I am opposing this, I don't oppose them in theory. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Just want to make that clear. So one of the things that I see, reiterating some things that other people have said, is the traffic logistics are not well thought out here because, for example, the 22 exit off of Joseph Street is an extremely dangerous exit. I have seen numerous accidents happen there over the years. The Almsville Highway, Joseph Street exit at the other end of that, I just was run off the road 3 days ago by a teenager right there. So that's it's like 2 double blind curves. It's an incredibly dangerous area. To increase traffic in this area is definitely going to increase problems in the area. Even on Jordan Street itself, there's a very dangerous S-curve that people who live there know, but many people who are coming and visit just run right off the road. So it's, there's a lot of different things. Also within long-term scale travel logistics, I noticed this morning that Santiam Passes already has a lot of snow. It's off the side of the road, but if you're coming across from Eastern Oregon to have interments for your loved ones, there are going to be people who die in the winter because veterans don't only die in the summertime, they die in the wintertime too. And there are people coming over, there are definitely going to be accidents that result in fatalities. So you're going to die on your way to a funeral or die on your way to visiting a loved one. That seems like insane. I also have some issues, as was raised earlier, about sort of the fairness of having inadequate veteran VA cemeteries in Eastern Oregon and Central Oregon. These are underserved areas where we have a lot of veterans who it's kind of ridiculous to have someone drive from Burns or Baker City to Salem to have an interment. That seems like a completely illogical process to me. Also, do not understand how this is not a violation of EFU. This is absolutely beautiful prime farmland, and turning it into a cemetery seems to be insane to me. Just from a very specific hyperlocal area perspective, this is the last thing that I would say, is that yes, the vineyard that's there does have seasonal disturbances. We have air cannons going off 24 hours a day in the harvest time, and we also have these like almost helicopter engine sounding fans that blow warm air when it dips down too low, but those are seasonal, and the wildlife have adapted to it. So the Waldo Pond area where it is, this is very close to the proposed site. We have a lot of wildlife there. We have an enormous number of raptors and also wildfowl, as well as wildcats. We've seen a black panther out there about 3 years ago. So there is a lot of wildlife. They adjust to the seasonal noises of the air cannons and the helicopter fans, as I call them. But the 21 gun salutes and et cetera that are required in many military interments, these are year round. So that they're not going to be able to adjust to that. So that's basically the only thing I wanted to bring is that we have a lot of logistical issues here that haven't been thoroughly considered, and also the fairness issue about our veterans in Eastern Oregon. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. Bill? And then after that, John, is it Durzall? All right, so thank you.
My name's Bill Ulrich. I live at 8942 Jordan Street, which is directly across from this proposed site. First of all, I want to thank you for picking up the ball and running with it and get involved in this project. We thought we were kind of going to be on our own. I was born into a 1,200-acre farm. I was taught the value and the necessity of production farmland. My concern here is the loss of that farmland and the potential effect on water at our place, because we're directly across the street from it, and the surrounding areas when they start pulling down a proposed X number of gallons per day to keep the yards looking nice. I'm not going to go on, but because my confidence is in you to pick up this ball and carry it on in place of me. I just want to see the farm stay a farm.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
John Durzall. Did I get that right? Durzell.
Close.
I know. I'm trying.
John Drizel, 7845 Burton Place. Morning, and thanks for the opportunity to address this with you. I think it's safe to say most of us up in Maclay were blindsided by seeing a scoping notice in online news source. The VA had not come to me or anybody up there with a proposal for what they want to do. How many burials a day? Are they going to bulldoze all those vines right away and put 300 acres of turf in there? We're all on wells up there, as you know. Some are okay, some are not okay. And the potential for an impact on those wells, if they try to irrigate 300 acres of turf, that's going to take a massive amount of groundwater to do that. Now, again, VA hasn't told us anything about what they're going to do. Are they going to do it in phases, or are they going to do the whole thing all at once? So groundwater is a big concern of mine. Personally, my well's okay, but we don't water our lawn in the summertime anymore because we're worried about it. We're concerned about it. Gentleman mentioned traffic, and he's right. Maclay in particular, something like 9 curves, 7 of them are under 30 miles per hour, 3 of them are like 25 mile per hour curves. You start getting funeral processions and attendant families coming up there. Again, we don't know. 4 or 5 times a day for burials, it could turn into a traffic nightmare. You'd never get an ambulance up there or a fire engine up there with that kind of traffic, if that were to happen. Again, we don't know. Just very quickly about the environmental assessment, that's kind of a lower level environmental review. They could have gone right straight to an environmental impact statement, and then their own guidance for how they comply with NEPA says that they will do an environmental impact statement, the full-blown review, if the development of a national cemetery is over 50 acres. 50 acres is the trigger. Another trigger, and let me read this really quickly, because I don't want to run out of time here. Another trigger, and I'll read from the Code of Federal Regulations, is if there is a significant effect on local or regional zoning or comprehensive land use plans. That's you. So, there are other things that trigger a full-blown EIS, and those are in, you can read them for yourselves, they're in CFR Title 38, Chapter 1, Part 26, and that's where it's all spelled out. I think our veterans deserve a better internment place than out in the Marion County backcountry. I really do. It's a kind of an out of sight, out of mind kind of place. Their families will know where they are, but nobody else will, and that's just not right. They deserve better than that. So I would hope you would convey that to the VA. I'm going to read this just because it's a little bit nuanced. I'm going to ask you, the Board of Commissioners, to write a letter to the VA, and I think the commissioners indicated you're going to do that. But include in that letter your constituents' concerns, your concerns about this location. I don't think I'm getting too far ahead here. I would ask you to ask the VA to abandon this location right now, just abandon it and look for a more suitable, honorable location for the veterans. Thanks.
Thank you for being here. All right, Mark Krantman and then Dan Herman.
My name is Mark Krautman. I own a 240-acre farm adjacent to this proposed project, immediately to the west on the other side of the railroad tracks. I want to thank the board here for hearing our concerns. I haven't heard a single person that's in favor of this, and when I heard about it, I mean, I'm a pretty calm person. I got riled up when I heard about this. My concern is really water. Water, water, water. I have the 20-acre reservoir right next door. I have a well. I don't irrigate out of my well because I'm sensitive to the concern about groundwater in the area. All my neighbors, if I pump that well dry, it's just irresponsible. This whole project is irresponsible. It's EFU farmland. I get it that the federal government can go out here and seize anything they want to, pretty much. I get that. That's why I really appreciate the commissioners hearing our concerns here so we can feel like we have some measure of input on this, if not influence on the outcome. I'm really concerned, you know, the federal government, especially these days, the way they behave without regard to any sort of due process. And honestly, I'm fearful about it. I've had my business there since 1982. We've had that farm for 24 years. All the neighbors get along great. It's a rural community in an area that's fairly close to Salem, but personally, my livelihood depends on water. And you can't convince me with a straight face that they're not going to take that 300 acres and put a 500 car parking lot, a church and a mosque or a temple or whatever they have to have for the services, and then all the support services. Where are they going to park the backhoes that dig the grave? Where are they going to have a reception center for the people that legitimately want a place to gather without driving another 40 miles? I believe, Mary, you mentioned about the fact this is 300 acres. It makes no sense to put one right there without having access to a federal cemetery elsewhere in the state. Do they have one in Baker or Klamath Basin, anywhere at all? Why put 300 acres? I mean, I served, my draft number was 1, okay? I won the lottery on that. I've served, I'm empathetic about the whole veterans thing, but this just makes no sense at all. And if I sit here much longer, I'm going to get my BP up.
Okay, let's not do that.
Other people have mentioned traffic. Of course, I could cite, I've got a list of 6 different kind of major traffic hazards there, including the fish pond there at the end of Jordan where a guy died and went right through the fence. And I can enumerate these in writing later. I should also say, I know a lot about water and water rights and so on. There's a critical groundwater area, I believe, just a few hundred feet to the south of this proposed location. Yeah. And my experience with water is that it doesn't usually get better in this period of climate change. It gets worse, and they will expand that area. What are they going to do? Put the cemetery there and then look across the way at my lake and say, we're going to take your farm? It concerns me. It pisses me off, to be real blunt.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
I'm
and
sorry?
We appreciate you being here and sharing your thoughts with us, and I promise you we will do everything we can to make sure you're heard.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate this board
Yeah.
more than you all know.
Well,
Thank you.
we appreciate you being our constituent. Dan Herman. And then Kaylin Clark will be after Dan.
Hello, my name is Dan Herman, and we live at 1190 74th Avenue Southeast in the Maclay area. We have lived there 30 years. And as a nice segue from what just happened is that we started out to develop a small farm, which we have. We have sheep, we have sheep, 150 chickens, we have about an acre in orchard, and we have 3 greenhouses, and we grow produce to sell to like Life Source and Ross, and we sell eggs, and we sell sheep. So obviously we do a lot on that 7 acres. And when we moved there, we had ample water to even water the fields a little bit and do all the orchards, the gardens and everything else. As time's gone by, with more and more development in the area, I mean, not huge ones, but houses here, a house there, more and more water. So essentially, we found that over time, our well went from 17, 18 gallons a minute clear down to around 5. And obviously, you can't sustain a piece of property like we have and the number of animals and different kind of produce that we grow on that. So we had another well drilled and went down 300 feet about and got like 8 gallons a minute. And so that wasn't enough, and so we bought a 2,000-gallon tank to trickle this water in, and we're very conservative with how we use water, drip lines and so on. We don't like, that's not how we choose to farm. So at any rate, and now we're between those 3 wells, we're about breaking even on what we can do with our property. And so we're actually ones that are also extremely concerned with water. And that project, which is a mile and a half maybe, but it's that general area, the water table, we just won't be able to continue. We actually use our property for farming, little as it is. And so, and long ago gave up irrigating our fields. So we have to buy hay all the time instead of being able to feed our sheep with grass. So anyway, that's basically what I have to say. And everybody else's concerns regarding traffic and all that kind of stuff is very relevant to us too, as we've lived there all those 30 years and developed it. And we just want, it's a community that's very unique as far as, it's comfortable, it's quiet, people are friendly. I mean, it really is a community of really solid people. And my concern is there's going to be a lot of conflict and controversy that's going to arise out of this if it's continuing. So that's really all I have to say. So.
All right, thanks for being here, and thanks for farming. Kaylin? And then there's something on this that I'm not exactly clear on, but it looks like, am I going from Kaylin to Dave and then back to Tina? Got it, okay. Yep.
Good morning. Kaylin Clark. I live at 8341 McClay Road.
Could you just talk into the microphone? Thank you.
Sorry, I'm
No
Kaylin
worries.
Clark. I live at 8341 McClay Road. I kind of think it's like the heart of McClay right there. But anyways, thank you for allowing me and my neighbors in the community to speak to you today. There's been a lot of information and data provided regarding like concerns and impacts, the resources it will take or take away from regarding this proposal for the National Cemetery to be located on Howell Prairie. I share many of those same concerns. I have a lot of questions. My first is the dignity of the deceased. I don't understand why such a remote area would be picked. The expansion or relocation of Willamette National Cemetery, it should be easily accessible. It should be visually seen by the public. Our veterans deserve to be honored. And we should be reminded of the sacrifices our military men and women made for our country. Yeah, it takes away from, EFU land. I have just shy of 3 acres, and I would hate for that to be impacted. I love our community, and I don't want them to be impacted either. The groundwater, yes. The wildlife. It would turn away the wildlife. We live out in the country, and I know I bought a home where the wildlife is their home too, and it would totally turn them away. I enjoy, the coyotes, the hoo-hoos of the owls, really the majestic bald eagle was in my backyard 2 months ago, that would be gone. There is historical Waldo House on the property, so I do believe that should be, kind of considered as well. Traffic. Traffic is a huge concern. We've talked a lot about that. There's no shoulder, and there is windy curves. Unfamiliar drivers would be put at risk at a time where they're mourning already. And whose responsibility would it be, to maintain these country roads after this is there? Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Just for the record,
I know,
taxpayers in
right?
Marion County are
Exactly.
responsible for road
so
maintenance.
Thanks. As well as the water. Whose responsibility is it for us to get more water on our property? That's us. That's put on us. Right. So I do ask, what other sites were evaluated for suitability for this cemetery? This can't be the only site that was. I say, if this must be in the Willamette Valley, I would suggest to explore alternate scoping options that definitely would have less of an impact on the Maclay locals. I have some great ideas. Acquire some land with a prison. There's a lot of land that is shared. Maybe there can be paid prison labor. Acquire land from a golf course. Many golf courses, they're visible, they're easily accessible by transportation, and offer much needed burial space as well. I'm almost done. But also, I'd like to focus on the annual fiscal report, which is sent to the governor from the Department of Veteran Affairs Advisory Committee. This report summarizes the focus of key initiatives to veteran services and programs across the state, and specifically in the rural counties. Eastern Oregon rural counties, ODVA, they've embarked on an ambitious agenda to better serve every veteran, including those in 10 major Eastern Oregon rural counties, with the development of several critical programs that include Oregon Veteran Homes. One's located over at the Dalles. The other is in Lebanon. Federal Highly Rural Transportation Grant. That's been going on for 9 consecutive years now. The Oregon Rural Veterans Healthcare Transportation Grant, Veteran Services Grants, Campus Resource Center Grants, Community Counseling Solution Grants. So with the focus and investment in these Eastern Oregon rural counties, it is a strong representation of the veteran population in need of closer VA services and benefits, which includes meeting the National Cemetery Administration's goal of providing eligible veterans and their family members with reasonable access and distance to VA internment options. Oregon currently has 4 federal VA cemeteries on the west side of the Cascade Mountains, from Portland all the way down the I-5 corridor to Eagle Point and Medford area. Veterans of Eastern Oregon and their families would be better served with interment sites closer to their loved ones. In summary, my goal is not to shut down this project, stop this project, but to redirect this project to a better served location. So commissioners, I encourage you to prioritize your partnerships, host meetings, maintain ongoing dialogue with key legislative and congressional representatives, including the stakeholders. Thank you for considering my comments.
Thanks for being here. All right, Dave Nelson.
Good morning. I'm not a public speaker, but this concerns me, so
either.
I'm going to give it a shot. I retired from the State of Oregon Water Resources Department And I know a little bit about water, even though I was the accounting manager and the contracting manager. But I had a lot of contacts there, and I did learn the 23 years I worked there quite a bit about water. So I contacted them, spoke to the head hydrogeologist, spoke to the water right manager, and found some pretty interesting information about this specific property. There's currently a water right on this property, and it's a limited water right. When they issued this water right in 2007, they did an extensive groundwater study and determined that there wasn't sufficient water to give a full-fledged water right to this property. So to put that in perspective, they issued a water right for what they call 1 cubic foot per acre per water year, which is March 1st through October 31st of every year. So what that means is they can irrigate 12 inches of water per acre in that 6-month water year. So if you do the math on that, even though, okay, let me back up. Had this not been a limited groundwater permit, which I have the certificate number, an ordinary water right would allow 2.5 cubic feet versus 1 for this property. Even at 1 cubic foot per acre, if they fully exercise that right, they would pump over 2 billion gallons a year of water. So the federal government has something for property that they already own. They have something called where they possess a federal reserved water right. That is not applicable to this property since they are going to purchase it from a the private sector. So they are subject to the State of Oregon Water Resources Department's rules and regulations, and they already know of the issue with water out there. As other people have already let us know, they've had to deepen wells, put in cisterns, and drill new wells. So the current well is not being exercised because farmers recognize the limited water, so they put crops in that don't require a lot of water. And in the case of these vineyards, they put in a drip system, and they only use it to get the grapes established. They want the roots to go deep, so they quit watering. So this water right has really not been fully exercised in any regard. So if they start pumping 2 billion gallons of water a year out of this one well, 360 feet deep, produces 700 gallons a minute, they're probably going to deplete that. And per the Water Resources Department, the federal government is subject to their rules and regulations, and since 2007, the rules have been tightened even further, and they will not get a new water right. So if they're going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars into a cemetery, what's going to happen when they don't have any water? That's the main issue. I know I'm limited here, so there's one issue. I know traffic's another issue. There's several issues. But if you look at the property directly across from this, and I can tell you, I live 3/4 of a mile from this property. I can't put a shovel in the ground because it's solid rock. And there's boulders everywhere. If you look directly across this property, to the west, up on top of the hill, is a mountain of boulders that they have cleared out of that property so that they could farm. This property, when they start digging graves, 6 feet deep or whatever, they're going to have a heck of a problem. You know, you can't put a grave 3 feet from the next one and try to move a boulder without disturbing that. So that's another issue. Anyway, that's all I have to say. So I'm going to send this to the VA. I have contacts, phone numbers to verify what I was told from the Water Resources Department.
Thank you. Tina, before you go, I have one, Nancy Krautman. Would you like to go before Tina? Maybe I got that, I think that's what it says. Okay, great. And then while she's coming up here, some of you didn't put your emails or phone numbers down. I'm going to give this back to Brenda, and if you could, please make sure your email and phone number is listed on this public record. We're not publishing it, but I need our team to be able to reach out to you. We are creating a listserv, an email listserv, so we'll communicate with you, and we'd like you to communicate with us, and I'll talk about that when we're done with public comment. All right.
Hello, I'm Nancy Krautman, new kid on the block, having just married Mark Krautman 7 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
And joined his love for trees and plants and nursery. Over the years, he's produced millions of trees through heritage seedlings, and now that land next door is used for growing specifically Willamette Valley wildflowers and oak savanna restoration. And one person earlier in the testimony testified about how it would take out a lot of the oaks. It's just a wildlife wonderland there, and a golf course style cemetery would greatly impact that wildness. Just in general, back in the day, SB 100, Hector McPherson was a farmer who drove our state's land use laws, which I was in college then and was very proud of that, and have been an advocate of exclusive farm use for many years. I think this is just a general violation of Oregon's exclusive farm use zone, which is wrong for the federal government to do. I looked quickly. Permitted uses include cemeteries in conjunction with churches, but not standalone. I really believe the county commissioners need to be the guardians of Marion County's agricultural heritage, and invoking Tom McCall and Hector McPherson and all those good farmers who had the vision to protect our Oregon farmland. I would hope that you will join together with all these good citizens here and continue that fight. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Congratulations on your marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Tina Herman, you're up. Long time no see. Good job. Yeah. No.
So, good morning, Commissioners Cameron, Bethel, and Willis. My name's Tina Herman. I live at 1036 74th Avenue Southeast. I didn't need these the last time I was here, so give me a second. I am here on behalf of my family and neighbors, many of which you have already heard from, who live in the unincorporated community of Maclay. Thanks so much for hosting us today. You've heard a lot, and if I may, I just want to wrap up with a couple of things. To reiterate, the county and state can form cooperating agencies. These agencies can be federal, state, county, tribal, or local entities with jurisdiction or special expertise on the scoped area. You've heard all about scoping. All of these groups are formally invited to participate, all of them, and work with the federal government, but they must engage now. It's essential that each one of these groups invite themselves to the party. No FOMO here, because if we don't, the federal government will move on without us. I've learned so much and have been drinking from the fire hose. It's absolutely an amazing process and an honor for the county to be considered by the federal government, but please don't get starstruck. I can share that this is not something that the citizens of Marion County want. We have spoken to our community forum with almost 100 people in attendance. We've visited farmers as they're farming in their fields, stopped folks on the roads, struck up conversations at softball games and in restaurants, and they all genuinely reflected on the prospect and unanimously said, no, thank you. So, as we bring this opportunity before you, thank you so much for allowing us to speak up for the not yet that is the future of Marion County by keeping this ground farmland for those who are to come after us. Then, guys, looking further, or commissioners, excuse me, then commissioners, not guys, looking further to see what is already available in Western Oregon to honor our deceased veterans and their families, and consider what can we give out of that abundance to the veterans and their families in Eastern Oregon. So please look at joining forces with other county and state agencies to seek hallowed ground elsewhere in Oregon for this wonderful cause. This is no small feat, and we, your neighbors and constituents, are asking that you fully enter into this process. Make our concerns your concerns. And ask the VA how they plan to remedy these issues that we've brought to you today. We are genuinely not looking to derail this project, but as citizens of Marion County, we don't want to be railroaded either. We would love to have an open dialogue. So before I wrap up and go upstairs to pay our property taxes, are there any questions you might have for me or our community?
Thank you, Tina.
All right, thanks.
So we don't typically ask questions,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the opportunity. I know how to reach you. I'm
Yes.
sure my peers do too. I did reply to your email to
Yes,
let you know
thank
that
you.
we see you and we hear you. Thanks for paying your property taxes.
Yeah.
It'll
Yeah.
save you money if you pay them early.
But make sure you look at that line, only a little bit of that goes to the county.
Yeah, that's actually a true story. I looked at mine the other day and about died.
I'll revisit that. I'll put.
Even though the
You should
check.
revisit it very clearly. I'm pro all the things, and also I'm tired of paying taxes.
So,
Just a few things for all of you, and I'll let the other two engage if they'd like. As I said before, we have already submitted a letter to the VA. We are going to continue to be a part of this conversation. I do feel very confident in the partnerships that we have back east with the people that we've built relationships with this year in this administration to hear us. We'll engage the governor's office. We will reach out to state partners as suggested, which is already in the works. We're working with our team internally. There was some suggestions. I just want to kind of recap a couple things. Eastern Oregon, most crops over there are waterless crops. The reason they choose the Willamette Valley is because we have robust water and they need green lawn. So it's not likely that they're just going to jump the Cascades and put up a cemetery over there, which is why they haven't before. But that doesn't mean that we don't have property here locally. In one of our neighboring counties, Polk County has a robust amount of land and also water, so does Lynn County. We do have great partnerships regionally, and we'll bring our partners to the table because we do want to honor our veterans as much as we can in a way that is community-like. So we see you and we hear you. And I feel like since this came about 3 weeks ago, I've talked or done something about it every single day. So it is at top of mind. It is a priority for us, and we are working on your behalf to do everything we can. And if anybody happens to have the phone number of the landowner, I would welcome it because I'm trying to reach him. So feel free to send it to me. Because I want to have a conversation with him because I'm pretty sure I know how this happened, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. Commissioners, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just that I really appreciate your involvement in being here. I know this is a big time commitment for you to come here on a Wednesday morning when you all have work to do. So I appreciate you being here. We're interested in helping the VA find the right location. And I appreciate your comments, and I think it'll be helpful for them to know that this is the location they're looking at is not the right location. So, yeah, just thanks for your involvement. That's really important.
Yeah, I would echo both my colleagues' comments, but I want to thank you for sitting through one of the longest consent calendars that I had to read. And for those of you, the individual who said, I've never been here before to talk to the board or be before the board, I really want to say thank you, because I remember 30 years ago when I had some issues and I came in to see the Board of Commissioners and how I felt about testifying. So come back again. Tell us about good things too that are happening. when you have an opportunity. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you very much for being here today, and you'll make a difference. Somebody made a comment about, gentleman made a comment about handing it off to us to make a difference. And I want to really state the fact that you, as a citizen, contacting not only us, but your congressional delegation and state representatives, et cetera, makes a huge difference. We do represent you, and we do the best we can, but your voice is the one that people really listen to the most, as we did today. So thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you all. We have a couple of public hearings and some other action items to attend to, so feel free, if you want to exit right now, do that while we transition in the agenda. Commissioners, I appreciate your patience. I was on an Association of Oregon Counties meeting and wasn't able to get here to start. So let's move into the action item under Public Works to consider an appeal of the hearings officer's decision approving partition variance case number 25-013 Francisco Villalobos. Hi, Austin.
Good morning.
Don't forget to sign your information on that sheet with Brenda. Okay, sorry.
Didn't see you back there. You were hiding behind that.
I know, I got totally locked out.
Okay. Thank you.
I tried this summer.
No, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Today I'm here to bring you an item of consider accepting an appeal of the hearings officer's decision approving partition/variance 25-013 for Francisco Villalobos. Coincidentally, this is actually in the Maclay area as well. It is just about 0.7 miles from that cemetery site.
Is that water?
Yes, they did do a sensitive groundwater overlay hydrology report, so they have shown they have enough groundwater for this one.
Okay.
So this was a partition that we approved. It was an 8-acre parcel. They want to divide it into 3 parcels of 4 acres, 2 and 2 acres, and then a variance to allow 6 dwellings to be accessed off a private easement where typically only 4 are allowed. And this is in an acreage residential zone. The address is 2628 Happy Valley Way Southeast. The planning director approved the application, which was subsequently appealed. On August 7th, 2025, the hearings officer held a hearing with an open record period and then issued a decision on September 9th, 2025, approving the request. This was appealed, the same appellant who appealed it to the hearings officer appealed it to the Board of Commissioners on September 24th, 2025. Staff recommends that the board deny the appeal as the appellants have not submitted new evidence or information and are not asking the board to make a policy decision or interpretation of code. And I will go into that quickly here. So the appeal is about the variance to allow more than 4 dwellings off this private access easement. The appellant states that he does not believe that the hearings officer or the board has the power to grant a variance to this provision in our code, and that's where the argument lies. So I did a little bit of research and I found that since 1981, the board, or not the board, but staff or the hearings officer has approved a variance to this standard. Let me see here, that is 18 times, and then the board has actually approved a variance to the standard 4 times.
I'm sorry, Austin, I want to interrupt you.
Yeah.
The person who is appealing the decision wants more dwelling sites, is that correct?
No, it's less.
Yeah.
It says we don't have the ability to.
Oh, okay.
It's a neighbor that their position is that we cannot vary that standard to allow.
I see. I was confused. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so to go into that, we have a demonstrated history of the board, the hearings officer, and staff approving applications, or at least hearing applications for this variance standard. It's also contemplated in the TSP, where it says that typically only 4 dwellings are allowed off of a private access easement, but if a land use application is approved varying that standard, that is fine as well to do. We typically look at this to see if there are any safety issues to allow more than 4 dwellings off a private access easement. In this case, our traffic engineers and the fire department did not identify any safety issues. There's enough turnaround space for cars and fire trucks. The easement is well maintained, it's flat. It's a pretty typical setup for an area that is very residential and has pretty much been subdivided to its fullest extent. This is just kind of one of the last large lots that's able to be developed at the end of the road. And so that's sort of the situation we have, which is why staff is recommending that you guys deny the appeal and approve the hearings officer's decision. The other motions for considerations are accept the appeal or remand the matter back to the hearings officer, and I will stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Austin. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Austin?
I don't.
I'm sorry, what?
I just want to clarify, so the hearings officer approved found that the applicant met the burden of proof for the variance, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Because the appeal is coming not from the applicant, but from...
Correct, it's, yeah, from a neighbor, a different person.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm good.
Okay, then I'll take a motion.
I would move that we deny the appeal of the hearings officer's decision approving the partition variance 25-013 Francisco Villalobos.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion passes. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right, Troy, Juvenile Department, come on down.
Good morning, Commissioners. Troy Gregg, Juvenile Department Director. I am here on 2 actions today. One will be a little bit later, but this one is to consider the approval of the incoming funds on the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Youth Authority, not to exceed amount of $1,994,551 to support juvenile crime prevention, basic, and diversion services. These dollars are pass-through dollars that we get through the legislature to the Oregon Youth Authority. Focuses on basic and diversion, and we spend all these dollars on our guaranteed attendance program, the shelter program, for the juvenile department. And yeah, any questions that you have about what we do with it, or?
I'm glad you said prevention there.
Yes.
Because I thought you were saying support for juvenile crime.
Yeah,
Prevention.
we try
And I was
to
like,
avoid
geez
support.
Louise, man, that prevention word was really critical there.
JCP, the P.
Juvenile crime prevention. And just to let you know, these dollars cover about 1/3 of the cost of GAP. The rest of it comes through general fund, and as well as reimbursements that we get back for behavioral rehabilitation services. And the GAP program is the only residential option that we have at the juvenile department outside of drug and alcohol treatment, before kids would then have to be kicked up to the state and the Oregon Youth Authority to have residential beds. So this is the best option that we have at the juvenile department to help divert kids from going deeper into the system, which is our entire goal.
It's a great program. I'm glad we have it, and I wish it was more robust.
Amen.
Commissioners, anything? All right, I'll take a motion.
Yeah. And I just note that this is a retroactive contract back to July 1, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve an incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Youth Authority in not to exceed amount of $1,994,551 to support juvenile crime prevention, basic and diversion services retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a 5-minute break and be back here at 10:25 for public hearings. So take a pause. Okay, we're back. I'm going to open a public hearing to consider I'm on finance to consider adopting the fiscal year 2025-26 supplemental budget. Do I need to read this for that?
No.
Okay, great. Daniel.
Hey, good morning. My name is Daniel Dotto. I am a senior budget analyst with the finance department, and I'm representing our county's budget team.
Would you mind moving the microphone up just a little bit?
I certainly will.
Thank you.
And in accordance with local budget law and county policies, I'm here to present the first supplemental budget of fiscal year 25-26. This request increases the county's total budget by approximately $43.95 million, bringing the overall county budget to just over $787.2 million. And I'll just give you a little update on what is in here. Net working capital was adjusted to actual for all funds with carry forward balances. And 36 funds were adjusted. And in FTE, there was a net decrease of 25.9 FTE across all departments. Here's a breakdown. 25 FTE reduction in the sheriff's office, most of which was correlated to a reduction in community corrections funding at the transition center. In the district attorney's office, there's a reduction of 1 FTE data specialist position. Those duties are planned to be handled by a contractor. And then in human resources, there was a decrease of 1 FTE of senior project manager. That position just moved into the IT department, so no net increase there. In the general fund, there was an increase in the district attorney's office of $48,000. This was driven by an increase of materials and services and contracted data services and witness costs of about $154,000. But that was offset by a reduction of about $106,000 for the eliminated vacant data specialist position. In the sheriff's office, there was a decrease of $1.58 million. That was mostly driven by the reduction of FTE I mentioned just before. And then it transfers out, there's an increase of $519,000. This is mostly driven by capital projects across multiple funds. In capital projects, I did want to highlight a few here for this presentation. There is $30.16 million of total increases across the county in capital projects. Most of that is carry forward adjustments from the prior fiscal year. There is a new purchase of a building. This is a building that's going to be used by 2 departments. The Health and Human Services Department is purchasing a vacant lot, and that's going to be used for the construction of the Horizon House building. And then the Public Works Department is going to own the building itself, and that building is going to house the building inspection, land use development, and planning functions. And we estimate approximately 40 staff will be working there when this renovation is completed. It's going to cost about $5.6 million, and the remodeling of this building will continue into next fiscal year. There is also a new door control system at the Juvenile Detention Center. That's going to be $190,000. And we do provide updates on all of the capital project adjustments in the appendix of your supplemental packet there. I also wanted to point out there's going to be about $6 million increase in the Health and Human Services Fund. This is primarily driven by increases in intellectual disability funding and higher than expected carryover from the prior fiscal year. And then I mentioned this before, that the capital outlay is increasing quite a bit countywide. Most of that's carry forward. A big portion of that increase is in the Public Works Grants Fund, which is increasing $21.77 million. These are these major infrastructure projects that are being housed in this fund, including the county's radio system upgrade, water and sewer infrastructure projects in the Canyon, as well as in Brooks. So not new projects there, we're just carrying forward prior year projects and reallocating the funding there. And you have a pack in front of you with all the details at the fund level. We did go over this in a management update last week, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have them.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't have any questions. I appreciate the time that you and I always botch your name, but Zavila?
Yes, Shavilla, yes.
Go through with us a management update. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I don't. We beat this
Yeah, we did.
horse very dead.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that,
Madam Chair, if you're ready?
actually, sorry, yes, I was gonna Commissioner Willis do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, by
Go
all
ahead.
means,
Okay,
please.
Commissioner Willis, please make the motion.
All right, Madam Chair, I move that we close the public hearing and adopt the fiscal year 25-26 first supplemental budget.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second, and for the record, there was no public comment. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to recess as the Board of Commissioners and convene as the Contract Review Board, and Troy is going to come forward to consider approving an order granting an exemption from the Marion County Public Contracting Rules to reinstate an expired intergovernmental agreement between Marion County and the Oregon Department of Education as referenced in Exhibit A.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, I'm Sandra Fixon, Contracts Compliance Analyst in the Finance Department. Marion County Juvenile Department is seeking an exemption from MCPCR Section 10-0570, reinstatement of expired contracts. Section 1B requires that a written request for reinstatement be presented within 90 days after expiration of the original contract. Due to the delay from the state of Oregon in receiving Amendment 4 to the Intergovernmental Agreement 15683 with Oregon Department of Education, the department seeks an exemption to allow the contract to be reinstated in full force and effect 121 days after expiration as if it's never expired. Do you have any questions for me before I pass it to Troy?
No.
No. Troy.
Okay. Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner Willis, before we make some motion, do you have any questions for Troy for the record? Great.
I move that we approve an order granting an exemption from the Marion County Public Contracting Rules to reinstate an expired intergovernmental agreement between Marion County and Oregon Department of Education as referenced in Exhibit A.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you both. I will now adjourn the Contract Review Board and reconvene as a Board of Commissioners and go back into a public hearing.
Oh. We got to approve the contract.
Where?
Go back to action. Number 18.
Oh, just kidding. Sorry. We're going to be going back into the Board of Commissioners meeting. We'll do the public hearing in a minute. Now we're going to hear from Troy to consider the amendment.
Thank you.
I was wondering why you were here. I thought you were here for moral support for Sandra.
Troy Gregg, Juvenile Director. This particular amendment focuses on our family support program. It covers the cost of the 1.5 positions that we have over there. We have talked many times about this.
Your microphone isn't on, I guess.
Oh, maybe there.
There you go.
Yep.
I got it. Anyway, Troy Gregg once again, Juvenile Department. This contract is with YDO. Again, state dollars that are passed through. With regards to it, we use these fundings for the family support program, which covers 1.5 positions that we have available. This is one that we've done for a very long period of time. I am excited that we're going to set a work session with you guys to show some data about some of the great work that actually is coming out of this particular program. And so we're excited to do it. Contract lasted or took a little bit longer to get to us than we desired, but it's here, and that's why we're here today. So instead of
Thank you.
earlier.
Thanks for doing this work and making it a priority. All right. Commissioner Willis, would you make a motion, please?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I move that we approve amendment number 4 to the incoming funds grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Education to add juvenile crime prevention grant funding in the amount of $477,277 for a new agreement total of $1,406,322 to support programs that reduce crimes in communities retroactive to July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2027.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
All right, Troy, now you can go. Thank you. All right, and for the record, item number 19 was approved under the motion earlier. So now I'm going to go into a public hearing to consider zone change, case number 25-002, Creative Electric LLC. John's going to come forward. The board has had the opportunity to review the documents contained in the record and has had no ex parte communications regarding this matter unless specifically disclosed. If there are any objections to notice, jurisdiction, or conflicts of interest, the parties can raise them during testimony. Planning staff will list the applicable criteria for the application. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence may preclude appeal on that issue. With that, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you on the dais are 3 new documents that I submitted during recess. One is a map. That map is to kind of clarify where the parcel is in relation to Woodburn's urban growth boundary, and then a zoomed in version of that area. The other document is conditions of approval that staff is recommending if the board chooses to approve the proposal. The final document are findings related to using a limited use overlay for this parcel. And those findings were produced by the applicant. And those are, again, for use if the board decides to approve this proposal. For the record, this is John Speckman with Marion County Planning. The application before you today is a zone change from urban transition to commercial general on a 5-acre parcel within the urban growth boundary for the city of Woodburn. The property is designated commercial in the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan. The criteria for this decision are found in Marion County Urban Zone Code, Chapter 1639, Zone Changes, Chapter 1619, Urban Transition Zone, Chapter 1607, Commercial General Zone, statewide land use planning goals, particularly Goal 14 for urbanization, the 2015 City of Woodburn and Marion County Urban Growth Coordination Agreement, the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan, particularly the following goals and policies: Marion County coordination, commercial lands, workforce and target industry development, growth management. The subject property is located south of the city of Woodburn, on the west side of Highway 99E, off Navajo Lane Northeast. The property is currently a vacant field that was previously farmed. The property consists of 3 parcels created by partition case P88-61. These parcels all exist within tax lot 1800. Having been created in the current configuration by an approved partition, the subject property is legal for land use purposes. Adjacent properties to the north and south are zoned UT5 and within Woodburn's urban growth boundary. To the east across Highway 99 East and outside of the urban growth boundary are parcels zoned exclusive farm use. To the west of the subject parcel, outside the urban growth boundary, is the Belle Passy Cemetery, which is in a public zone. The subject property is within the urban growth boundary for the city of Woodburn, but is not adjacent to lands that have been annexed by Woodburn. The applicant's proposal to change the zone is for the purpose of establishing an electrical contractor's shop. The applicant proposes utilizing well and septic for this development rather than public facilities. Marion County Code 1613 describes the purpose of the UT zone and states in part, the urban transition zone is intended to retain and protect for future urban use properties which are undeveloped or underdeveloped and do not currently have urban facilities such as sanitary sewer, water, drainage, and streets. The 2015 Urban Growth Coordination Agreement outlines the process of transitioning land from rural to urban uses as public services are provided. The Urban Growth Coordination Agreement applies to the urban growth area, which consists of those lands within the urban growth boundary, but outside the city limits. These are the lands planned for annexation. The policies and procedures for the Urban Growth Coordination Agreement explain how establishment of urban uses on these lands shall occur upon annexation. A duly noticed public hearing before the Marion County Hearings Officer was held on this matter on May 15, 2025. The record was held open until June 5th, 2025, and on July 8th, 2025, the Hearings Officer issued a decision denying the zone change application. In the staff report presented to the Hearings Officer, staff recommended potential conditions of approval. The revised conditions of approval have been placed before you on the dais, and the applicant has suggested that if the application is approved, the following condition not be applied. That condition reads, and is no longer in that document, the applicant shall provide evidence to Marion County Planning that the parcels making up this property have been combined with a single perimeter description large enough to house the proposed electrical contractor's shop. The subject property currently consists of 3 parcels. Staff recommended this condition as an advisory because the submitted site plan proposes a structure straddling one property line and a septic system straddling another. The condition is not necessary for approval of the zone change itself, but rather outlines one of the required steps prior to building permits if this proposal is approved. Staff concurs with the applicant that this condition is not necessary. And I will stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No, at this time.
John, yes, Madam Chair, thank you. John, under the conditions, one of the handouts you gave us, the stack recommendation conditions, no outdoor storage on the property in conjunction with the electrical contractor business. Wouldn't they have vehicles or other pieces of equipment that they would potentially store outside?
In Woodburn's development ordinance, they restrict outdoor storage. And so during a conversation between Woodburn and the applicant early on in this stage, that was a concession the applicant offered to try and be consistent with their plan.
So they've accepted that condition, okay?
Yes.
And would build a facility that would allow them to store everything indoors?
That is my understanding of the proposal, yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move on to the applicant's opening presentation.
Hello, Commissioners. Can we bring another chair up here? I think both parties have two individuals. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Planning director is good for that.
Thank you,
He's good at other things too. Thank you.
So the paper, Wendy Killington representing the applicant, the papers you're getting are ones that we submitted before. We were just told bring copies so that you have them.
Would you talk a little louder? Thanks.
Sorry, Wendy Killington representing the applicant. The papers you're getting are ones that I think you probably already have seen. We submitted them a few days ago, and we were just told to bring copies here, and so that's what you're getting.
So just for the record, I think the size of the submission was too large, and John notified us that it would be presented to us in person, so we've not seen it before now.
That is
right?
correct.
Yeah. So make sure you go through it in detail.
Okay. Dang.
I know, sorry.
That's okay, it's okay. Best laid
That's why you're at
plans.
the end.
That's right, gosh, okay. Well, thank you very much. And again, Wendy Killington representing the applicant here. And before I get going, I want to say a couple of words. One is a real shout out to your staff. They are, once again, so amazing and fair and easy to deal with. We don't always agree. Sometimes we disagree a lot, but they are just really, really smart, thoughtful human beings, and they treat everyone with respect. And I just want you to know that we have really appreciated working with them, again, as we have on all applications. And I want to extend a similar shout out to the city here. This is not it's too bad we're at such polar opposites, but we have worked really hard with the city to do everything we can to meet their concerns. And we really do appreciate their willingness to meet with us. They didn't have to do that. And so this is a process that in the end, we've just had to agree to disagree with the city. But it's not because the parties didn't give it a go. So with that, I want to go over just sort of the basics at issue here. This is a proposal for no more and no less than a zone change within an urban growth boundary. So we're not talking about taking farmland out of production or anything like that. And the county's code allows zone changes in the urban growth boundary. And all of the county code provisions that we apply here, all the plan provisions that allow this zone change, they are all, every one of them, acknowledged as being in compliance with statewide planning goal 14. All of the urbanization standards are met. There is not any state law issue here. This issue is purely, and no more and no less, one that involves the interpretation of your own county code and your own county plan. Now, this proposal will conform the county zone to the city's commercial comprehensive plan designation that applies. And that is yet again another nod to being consistent with what the city has said that it wants for this property all along. The county's code is also express about when someone submits an application for a zone change, that denials are to be avoided. And it expressly says that your code, your acknowledged code says that if you can impose conditions or limits in order to resolve concerns. And here, the zone change has been proposed to be conditioned, and a limited use overlay zone has been proposed to be applied that will limit uses to those that are already allowed in the zoning district, plus the one additional use, which will ultimately be the one that this applicant wants to make of the property, to allow contractors' establishment for an electrical contractor business to be established on it. And in answer to your question, Commissioner Cameron, yes, all of the vehicles will be stored indoors. And again, that's an effort to accommodate the city. The hearings officer, by interpretation, really sort of lost her way. And this was not, I think, an easy case for her. But she really wiped that provision out of your county code that says we don't deny zone changes, we condition them if we can resolve concerns. Because we asked her to apply conditions, to apply the overlay zone, to limit uses, to limit impacts to those that will address all of the city's concern. And she didn't deny that, she just kind of ignored it. So we are asking for those limited conditions, but at the end of the day, this is just a zone change. There's no specific development that is proposed, and all of the zone change standards in the county's code are met, and I really don't think there's a plausible argument otherwise. Wanting to reinforce in this slide that we have met every single one of the city's concerns. We agree, and these things we weren't required to do. You know, we could have been a strident developer and said, heck no, we won't play, like many people do, but we didn't do that. We agreed if and when development approval is sought, that we will pave the access and the parking to the city's standards. We will accept a condition of approval that there be no outdoor storage. We will develop consistent with the site plan that we submitted. You know, limited use overlay zone says, okay, you can submit a site plan and show people what you're thinking about doing, and we can impose limitations on the use based on that. We provided that site plan and said we will develop as an electrical contractor business, if we submit an application consistent with that site plan. We agreed to dedicate frontage in order to allow the frontage to meet ODOT's width for that area of Highway 99. We agreed to annex to the city of Woodburn if they ever want. We agreed to hook up with their city and water and sewer if and when the city water and sewer ever reaches the property. We agreed to enter into a non-remonstrance agreement for improvements to Highway 99 if those were ever necessary in the future. If you need to improve it, we'll be good soldiers. We'll participate without objecting. All of those things, just so that this applicant, the owner of a small electrical business, can employ 15 people in family wage jobs on that site. So the city is mistaken in its claim that the IGA, number one, says what they say it is, but number two, that it's adopted as a standard for zone changes in the county plan. And I apologize, yesterday I submitted a letter that explains all the legalities of this. But basically the IGA is a contract that the Board of Commissioners approved to enter into on December 13th, 2015, and actually entered into on December 23, 2015. But there is no ordinance, no resolution, nothing that the county ever adopted, no post-acknowledgement plan amendment, no nothing that would make that IGA a part of the county's comprehensive plan, or that would make it a standard for zone changes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you bet.
You said it's a contract.
Yeah.
What was the consideration between the parties?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know that there was any consideration. It's just one of those, I mean, Steve, maybe he knows. Probably there wasn't any. It's just an intergovernmental agreement. I don't think anybody gave $1 or anything up. It's just an agreement.
So then it wouldn't be a contract, right?
Well, it may not be. It's called, these documents in state law, urban growth management agreements, I call it an IGA because UGMA hurts my head to say. But they're provided for in state law. There's a whole program about entering into them and what you can do in them. And so, I mean, I think in fairness to the county, it's probably some sort of a contract, but I don't know. I'm not a contract lawyer. At best, that's all it is, some sort of an agreement between the city and the county. LUBA has held that these kinds of agreements don't automatically find their way into county comprehensive plans or city comprehensive plans. You have to actually adopt them. And I went through the adoption process in yesterday's letter that your charter provides and your ordinance provides about what you have to do to legislatively adopt amendments to your plan. And it's just none of those ever happen. And so there's a statute that says the standards and criteria in effect at the time you submit your application are the ones that would be applied. It wouldn't be the IGA just wouldn't be a standard or a criteria. But even if it were, all of its terms are met. But you can't just gloss over the terms. And with all due respect, the city just kind of glosses over their terms. But if you really look at what the IGA says, there's nothing about this proposal that is contrary to it. It's as relevant here, broken into 3 pieces. There's coordination policies and procedures, there's a thing about zoning amendments, and there's a thing about the county's urban growth management framework, which the county has repealed. Neither here nor there, but that doesn't, so there's really only 2 bits. Now I get people make an awful lot of fun of me about the urban growth area, urban growth boundary distinction that I draw. It's not necessary to get this project to yes, but I just want to let you know the method in my madness, why I think as a lawyer, Commissioner Billis, you'll understand why I thought this, is that the IGA separates out rules that apply to urban growth areas versus rules that apply to things in urban growth boundaries. And it specifically defines the urban growth area as the area between the city limits and the urban growth boundary. And so it seems like it applies to the area between the city limits and the UGB and not the UGB. And I highlight a bunch of stuff, but there's a provision that even says amendments to the urban growth boundary and the urban growth area. Like, they're really different things. And if they are different things, the rules the city cites apply only to the urban growth area, not the urban growth boundary, and so they wouldn't apply anyway. But okay, even the city says, no, we meant them to be the same things. We didn't mean the IGA to say what it says. So, okay, fine. If we assume that the urban growth boundary and area are the same, we still comply with the IGA, and that assumes, of course, that it's an applicable standard or criteria, which I don't think it is because the county never adopted it as a part of its plan or as a standard here. But just to say, if it did, the IGA expressly says that the county's in charge. The county is responsible for regulating land use within the urban growth area until annexation. County's in charge. And as I think we've pointed out in all of our materials, all of the zone change standards are met. The county code says don't deny if you can condition, and we've suggested conditions. The IGA says it's all about promoting logical and orderly development in the UGA, in the urban growth area, in a cost-effective manner. And I can't think of how this proposal isn't logical. It's consistent with the city plan designation of commercial. It's orderly. It's not requiring the city to extend water, storm, or do anything it doesn't want to do. It's just going to allow this property to be served with an on-site septic system and a domestic well and on-site storm, just like everybody else around them. There's a standard that says, or a provision in the IGA that says, you can't allow uses requiring a public facility provided by the city in the urban growth area before annexation. Well, okay, there's no dispute that that's not happening. We're not proposing to allow any, facility provided by the city. It's a septic, it's a domestic well, and on-site storm. So that provision there's no violation of it. There's another provision that says all land use actions shall be consistent with the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan and county land use regulations. So, we're consistent with the county land use regulations, including the one that says, approve these things if you can condition them to make them, deal with concerns. And it's certainly consistent with the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan because their plan says the property is supposed to be planned for commercial uses. There's another City of Woodburn plan provision. These G ones are from the city's plan. The city and county maintain a process to talk to each other. There's no dispute that exists. The county retains responsibility. Again, the city's own plan says that the county's in charge in the urban growth area. And, approving this is completely consistent with the county being in charge. And then it says conversion of land in the urban growth area to urban uses shall occur upon annexation and be based on consideration of applicable annexation policies. Well, this isn't, first of all, no one's talking about annexing to the city. The city doesn't want to annex, and we're not talking about that. We're not converting land to urban uses either because it's already urban as a matter of state law. It's in the urban growth boundary, which separates urban from rural land. We're talking about the application of the county's urban zoning ordinance provisions. And if the urban rule applies, then it can only mean that you are going to allow city services. It can't mean anything else because everything that we are talking about allowing under this zone change are now allowed in the urban transition zone, plus the one additional use of a specialty trade contractor that your code also allows in the rural zoning code, in rural areas. So it can't be an urban use. Whatever that means, this one can't be it. I think what this provision is intended to say is that you don't get to order the city to provide city services to land outside of the city limits unless the city agrees. Totally fair. So the hearings officer's decision is mistaken in this urban use thing. So she really took off and saying, oh my gosh, this is an urban use outside of a city limit. But if the city said, okay, you can have this use, which is the only thing we don't have because we've agreed to everything else, that it wouldn't be urban. Now, wait a minute. How can the city saying, oh, we agree this is okay, make a use, the same use, more or less urban? It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. So this is the only provision in the IGA that can possibly apply, because this is the only part in the IGA that talks about zone changes. And it doesn't say a whole lot. It's a little homely. It says whenever the county proposes an amendment to the zoning map, the county is supposed to provide notice and a chance for the city to comment. That's a coordination obligation, and the county has done that. And then there's this consistency with the urban growth management framework plan, but as you see from the exhibits that we provided, county actually repealed that, but there wasn't a lot of exciting about it. There would, even if that was still in place, there's nothing about this that's inconsistent with approval here, but that provision is gone. Okay. So just kind of on a human level, there's really no fair or good reason, respectfully, to deny. The proposal is consistent with the county's plan, consistent with the county's code, consistent with the city commercial designation, does good things for the county modestly, 15 family wage jobs, and it improves an area that's pretty gnarly right now. So this is our surrounding area. We are right next door to a wrecking yard. We are right next door to some sort of a construction business. Here's our neighbor next door, which is totally fine. We're across the street from a commercial nursery. We don't introduce any adverse impacts. There is no dispute in the record that the one additional use that would be allowed in the zone has fewer trips, vehicle trips, than uses now allowed in the UT zone, makes almost no noise, certainly less than would be allowed in the UT zone, less dust than uses allowed in the UT zone. And this is just a thing. We had a traffic study done showing that the traffic trips that would be associated with the specialty contractor are far fewer than the uses that are allowed right now in the UT zone. So this is an important case for the county because it sets a really important precedent about retaining your own authority to approve or deny zone changes that you're responsible for based on the standards that you have adopted. The denial is pretextual. It says, just make it up that a use in the UGB is going to be unlawfully urban based on no standard that says anything about that, but unlawfully urban unless a city winks and nods and says, but we think it's okay. That's really unprincipled and it's really unfair. And this would be a set of precedent that would apply to other guys, not just, my client. It would apply to housing in the urban transition zone and other kinds of applications, because nobody's going to be, everybody's going to be urban under the analysis the city wants to provide and the hearings officer provided until they're annexed, and not everyone is close enough to be annexed. I've gone through here how all of the county zone change criteria are met, and you can look at that and I can answer any questions you have, but I don't think that there's any plausible standard that can be interpreted here is not being met. The only one I want to spend a little bit of time on is the county has a standard that adequate public facilities must be available or made available before the use is established. This standard is in the urban zone change code, in the rural zone change code, and in the conditional use permit standards in the county's urban code. So how you apply it here is going to affect three different application types. The first thing to notice is that there's no proposal here for any use. The ultimate uses of the property are being limited by the overlay zone if you agree to approve. But the proposal does not involve any use, so the standard itself doesn't apply. But there's a couple other reasons why you could find that the standard, even if it applied, is met. And the first is that the reference to public facilities can only mean facility types, not ownership. That's what the city's or the county's form says, your zone change form that we put in the record, it says if sanitary sewer is not available, a septic system must be installed. Presumably, the county is not in the business of misleading applicants. Presumably, the county's standard allows the approval of zone changes so long as the thing that would be a public facility, a storm facility, domestic water, septic, or sewer is available. It doesn't have to be owned by government, but it's available. But even if you could find that even if the standard demanded government ownership, the county could find that the facilities are made available before the use is established by the applicant's binding consent to connect to the city-owned facilities when they're at the property, because then they will be made available when the city allows them to be before the use is established. But interpreting this any other way means you could never approve a zone change in not only in urban growth boundaries, but also in rural areas, because you've got the same standard in both. And it is well settled that you cannot extend public facilities outside of UGBs. So if this standard applies the way the city says, forget any zone changes outside of UGBs. And the rural code that the county has that says that you can have zone changes, we're just going to write that out of existence based on this standard. That's not a plausible way to interpret laws. You have to interpret laws so that each of their provisions continues to have some effect, make some sense. And the only way, again, to allow all of the county's standards to make sense when they're read in harmony together is the way that we suggest that the public facilities standard be applied. In other words, it applies to a type of facility, not ownership, and can be met in your plausible interpretation of your own code, which you're completely entitled to make, and LUBA is required to defer to it, that made available is satisfied, the words made available is satisfied by an irrevocable consent to hook up when the system, city systems are available. Conditions, I've actually seen the county's most recent version of their proposed conditions, and they're fine. And thank you for doing that. Staff really appreciate that. They don't propose condition 12J, and so it's not an issue. So with all due respect, there really isn't any basis for denial and every reason to approve. The proposal brings good jobs. It'll improve the area that right now is pretty gnarly. It'll, these people are going to invest in it, make it look really nice. And it's consistent with the economic opportunities analysis for the city. This is the kind of use that the city wants. It's low impact, it's professional, and it doesn't burden the city a fig. The hearings officer made all kinds of nice findings about why, if the city weren't objecting, this would make perfect sense. So, in sum, we respectfully request that the hearings officer's decision be reversed on the basis that it improperly cedes county authority to the city and does not adhere to the county's code, but improperly amends the county's code by interpretation, depriving the county of its authority. It does not introduce an impermissible quote-unquote urban use to the property. The uses allowed under the zone change are those allowed now in the existing zone, plus the one trade contractor use is one that is allowed right now in the rural code. So as a matter of law, it can't be urban. If that is a standard, and we don't think it is, but even if it is, meets all county rules, doesn't impair any city interest. We've conditioned the heck out of it to make sure that any legitimate city issue is dealt with. We request your approval. We request, if you agree that approval makes sense, that you direct the applicant to draft approval findings for your county staff's review first, and then your ultimate review and approval. And those approval findings would say essentially that the IGA is not an independent approval standard, that but even if it is, that, all of its terms are, the proposal's consistent with all of its terms, that the proposal meets all county standards, and that the staff suggested conditions would be imposed, as would the overlay zone, to significantly limit the zone change. So that was kind of long, and I apologize, but thank you very much. I don't have anything else unless you have questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Wendy? All right, Brittany, you're at the dais. Is there something that you wanted to share? Introduce yourself for the record.
Am I on?
I don't know, are you? Is the light on?
Now?
Yep.
Yeah, you're on.
Great, I heard the door, I knew. Yeah. Yeah, so for your record, my name is Brittany Randall. I am the owner and principal planner of Brand Land Use, representing the applicant Creative Electric here with Wendy. And I don't have anything to add other than thank you. I know that you don't have to take applications up on appeal, and we just appreciate you hearing from us, our perspective.
All right, thanks for being here.
Super, thanks.
Okay.
And our client is here, if you have any questions from him.
Okay.
He and his brother are both here.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here, and I know it's been a long morning. John, before I move to the opponents, is there anything you wanted to add to the record from the presentation?
No, thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, great. So now I will call up the opponents. I have two listed. Are you going to come together from the city of Woodburn? All right, gentlemen. Chris Kerr and Chris Kilmer. I thought that can't be a typo. Then I had to look in the record to make sure it wasn't the same person.
Unfortunately, it's correct, Chair. I get a lot of emails across.
Your microphone is not on. It needs to reflect red on the top. So push it until the red light on the top of the microphone comes on. Good. There you go.
There we go.
And yours is a green light. I don't know which one is, I don't know which Chris is Chris.
Am I good? Stop and go all the way. So I'm hot?
You are, and you'll just want to lift up the microphone for you specifically. And as soon as you tell me who you are, I can address you appropriately.
Thank you very much. Good morning, I'm Chris Kerr, I'm the Community Development
Kerr,
Director.
got it.
K-E-R-R.
Yep,
For
thank
the
you.
City of Woodburn, been there for about 9 years. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and speak in opposition to this application that's come in.
So we've heard.
Chris will speak after me. And Chris Kilmer's the attorney. He's going to speak towards, obviously, a lot of the specific legal issues, and he'll go through a litany of the issues that have come up. I thought I'd focus, just because I'm the Community Development Director there. I do the planning, all the land use work there. My department runs the long-term planning, current planning, as well as building. I thought I'd focus on kind of the big picture and what this means development-wise. I can assure you that it's rare that we're down here. I don't think we've opposed a project other than a COVID hotel that we won't talk about. But other than that, I don't think
I remember that.
I don't think there's
Careful,
another
buddy.
project that we've had issues with.
What was that?
There's a lawsuit involved.
Yeah, all the lawyers.
But I think it says something to the fact that
Yeah.
we, the city, have had a really good relationship with the county. I don't just mean staff, but I mean at all levels, in terms of coordinating growth. And this project is deeply concerning to us, this rezoning would be. More importantly, disregarding or undermining the UGCA would really have a devastating impact on our ability to plan for orderly, coordinated, and predictable growth. And those things really matter. I know they seem kind of esoteric, but those are necessary because that's what allows us to provide for growth that we can finance into the future, and it gives the public certainty and an assurance that both the county and the city really have an idea of what they're doing and what's going on. You know, we're the fastest growing city in the state for cities over 5,000. I always have to caveat that. You're all very familiar with how fast we're growing population-wise, employment-wise. That's really hard to do. It takes a lot of coordination with the county and the city on all these projects. And undermining that agreement that we talked about and that's been coming up a lot would really be devastating to that. I brought mine up. It's very dog-eared for a reason. I'm in it all the time. This is the actual agreement, coordination agreement that we have with y'all. It's important to understand that that agreement's been instrumental in guiding that successful growth that we've had for the past 9 years since that was adopted. And it's been a joint effort. This document addresses everything from lot sizes for individual properties sort of that have come in out in the industrial side to every annexation we've had and brought into the city, and there have been a lot of them. We use it with all of our master planning. It involves all of our, we consider for all of our utility planning. And on the ground, and the way it really impacts folks is, think about, say, the big Amazon project that came in, right? That was part of the UGB expansion that took place that triggered this actual agreement that we have. And a lot of those terms, or a lot of the conditions and specifics in there deal with things like maintaining the rural character on one side of Butteville Road as opposed to the urban character on the other. That sounds minor, but that was a really important component to help make sure that the public said, you know what, we understand the city and the county are working together and looking out for our interests. It took a long time to get to that agreement, and it's worked well. I don't want to see it jeopardized. It's been a success story. I think it's odd that we're looking at ways to kind of subvert it and work around it. It's a fantastic product. It's worked well. I'm sure you have issues with other cities and their growth problems that they have around their perimeters. We haven't really had them here. It's odd to be kind of sitting in an anti-development or anti-individual project position. As I say, we've been growing really fast, but this kind of leapfrog, unplanned spot zoning development, which is what this is. I mean, the reason you have these sort of contorted conditions that your staffs had to put together, and I appreciate it, that's their job to create conditions for you. Remember, their recommendation, as far as I know, was still denial. But if you approve, it's here's some conditions we think can get there. That's a hard job for staff. I appreciate it. I do the same thing with my city council. You have to draft those conditions to try to help bring it as close as you can. At some point, it's a round peg in a square hole. You just keep banging on it, try to make it work. But you have provisions in your code. It's in the UT district. We encourage the applicant to continue operating just like every other property that's in the UT zoning district. Utilize those permitted uses. We encourage them to keep operating until they come into the city. It's not overly complicated. The whole point of this is so that, and the reason it has a commercial land use designation in the city is so that, and this is outlined everywhere, when it's annexed and brought into the city, that's how it'll be treated. It doesn't mean that in the county you can operate as a commercial use and change the zoning, because in the future when it comes in, that's how we would treat it. I know that seems odd, but I think it's important. And a couple things came up, and I want to talk briefly about the sort of conditions that have been brought up. But I have to lead them with, staff has, and the city has, from the very first conversation we had with the applicant well over a year ago, we believe there are no conditions of approval that would make this approvable and that would make it meet the criteria of everything that Chris is going to outline. So I don't mind talking about a few of them, but I don't want to jump ahead of the cart. That's just not the case. There are no conditions of approval that you can put on this that would make it approvable. And I'm going to talk for a second about one.
Yeah, can you, oh, okay, I'll let you go. If you're talking
let me
about
walk
it.
through.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy to say, well, we reviewed the city's code and we've tried to sketch together their issues. And I think I even heard that it won't be a burden on the city, and we think that these conditions will meet their standards. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have not reviewed a site plan. We have not reviewed any application they've come in here. They presented this conceptual plan that we have. But our process, the city process for reviewing development applications, is far more robust than the county's. So just sitting in the back, I did a little cursory look at the plans, what the conditions are, and how that project would be treated if it were annexed into the city as it's supposed to, and as it will be shortly.
But can I stop you? But
Sure.
But my understanding of the city's position is that you can't annex it, or you don't want to annex it into the city at this time. Isn't that the city's position?
Correct, right.
And the answer is both to his question. You can't and aren't right now.
Is that right?
Our position is that you can't annex, you can't annex because there's requirements say you can't do it. That's true.
That's right. You can't and aren't.
And so if
Right, I know.
Right, and so regardless of what the conditions would be in the event of annexation, that's not what we're talking about right now, because no one's contemplating annexation, right?
That's correct. But what I want to point out is if you allow this to go forward and the rezoning takes place, this will be developed in a way that's completely inconsistent with the city standards when it comes into the city. Remember, the plan is to bring this into the city, and that's going to happen in a few short years.
But let me ask you, there are other properties that we saw, like the property with all the cars.
Sure.
Would you look at that and say, that looks consistent with the city standards? Like if that person had come to you and said, hey, this is what we're planning on doing, wouldn't the city have said, well, these are the standards you have to meet?
We would, when they come into the city. Right?
Okay.
They're not in the city today.
And this parcel is also not being brought into the city today, right?
That's correct.
So this is what I'm trying to understand is, since in the future, with all the urban transition properties, if someone wants to develop those properties when they're annexed into the city, there's going to be a different set of standards for development.
That's right.
Than currently, right?
That's correct.
So why is this property any different than any of the other properties in the urban transition zone?
Well, that's really easy, because it's not being developed under the UT provisions. We encourage the applicant and all applicants to meet all the county requirements for the UT zoning district, the transitional urban district. The permitted uses and the requirements in the UT district are perfectly consistent with moving forward and, as it's described, to eventually transition into the city's urban growth plan, or to the city's. The problem is they're not doing that. They're jumping out in front, and they're saying, we want to be commercial and do a use that's outside the UT district.
So this is the
and
part
develop it
that,
that
this is what I'm trying to understand. So is it this, I can't imagine this is the case, but it might be. So is it the city of Woodburn's position that the county does not have the authority to change the UT zone in land that the county is the land use authority of? That can't possibly be your
No,
your
that's not our position at all. Our concern is that this particular rezoning would create a situation where you're going to have land developed in the county that's going to make efficient, orderly, predictable urban growth impossible. And it's going to limit it. And I can walk you through the various reasons that is.
Okay.
There's a reason we want orderly transitional annexation and development. And if you jump ahead of that and allow a brand new commercial use down the road that gets developed in a different way, it makes it very difficult for future annexations.
But not impossible.
Why?
Not impossible.
Explain that, why?
Sure. So when you think about, try to imagine that the development is developed as it's proposed with the conditions that are in there. Understand it's not going to meet a plethora of the city's requirements. So we're going to have the project developed down there that we haven't looked at, the city has not looked at, in terms of putting in all the improvements that we require, not just on that property, right? It's not going to meet any of our design requirements, our landscape requirements. We actually have requirements that you have to have, say, interconnectivity between properties, commercial properties, right? So that when property develops next door, we have a requirement that you need to tie into that property on the adjacent side to avoid trips on the road.
Okay.
We have requirements that we look at whether or not, let's say, a transit stop has to be put in front of it. We have to make decisions now about whether or not a future regional sewer line or a water line needs to go in, if we need to pick up utility easements, usually cross property lines or share on property lines, and whether or not they go in there. Those are covered in our transit plan and our water master plan, our sewer master plan. We have a transportation system plan that'll call out improvements along Highway 99 for, say, a 6-foot sidewalk with a utility easement behind it so to make sure we can provide those. It'll have a 6-foot landscape easement with street trees in front of it. We have requirements that are going to prohibit the parking lot lighting to be higher than 14 feet. None of those things are going to take place if it's developed as it's proposed. And that's a problem
But
for
won't
us.
those all apply when someone wants to develop it inside the city?
They will, and here's why you want to not allow it now and make sure that it only gets approved as part of the UT district. We, the city, 2 years from now, are going to have to walk back in when this new development's proposed. That's going to be, we call it non-conforming, right? It'll be legally non-conforming in the city. We won't come in and say you have to change anything. But now we're going to have to put our new water line through somewhere that needs to get through. Maybe we had a trail plan that was supposed to go through the back of there. We need to put in the improvements along the street frontage that need to go in because we can't tell the applicant to come back and do that later. because we allow that development to leapfrog and jump ahead.
But isn't that true for all the other properties that are around this property? Like the existing businesses, the nursery across the street,
we have a lot of non-conforming. Those are developments that happened, that have been approved in the county, and they can continue to exist. That's how we treat them. I think like the pawn shop that exists up on 99 that I get calls on all the time in Woodburn. You see, what is that doing there? Why isn't there a sidewalk, and why aren't there any driveways, and why doesn't it have any lighting, et cetera, et cetera? And we say, I'm sorry, they can just keep operating that way. And this is the key. Once this takes place, they will have no incentive to annex into the city.
Even if they say they have to?
Well,
Even if the
there's not a
conditions-
condition that says they have to. It says they won't object to it if the city wants to come in and force them to annex.
Isn't it the same thing, though?
No, the people come and annex to our city basically for two reasons. One, their septic tank goes out of commission, or they want to develop, right? This is a case of someone who just wants to jump ahead. They want to develop commercially without going through the annexation process.
But let's go back to the they won't oppose the annexation.
Sure.
I mean, I know the Woodburn situation. You don't have like a plethora of land within the urban growth boundary yet. Is there any suggestion or any thought that the city wouldn't want to annex this at some point in the future?
We absolutely want to. We want all the property in the UGB.
So if they say they won't oppose annexation, then isn't that the same thing? Well, what doesn't that mean that it's going to get annexed?
The city doesn't go out and annex people's property. That's not something that we do. We've done it one time about 20 years ago to pick up sort of these stray individual infill parcels. Because what we don't like is these small infill, the projects you're talking about that are, let's say, problematic for the city and for us to facilitate this orderly growth are these little pigeonhole pieces of unannexed property in our UGB that the neighbor to the south of here is going to have to work around. The neighbor to the south is going to have to put in the water line that runs past this property or the sewer line that runs past this property. And someone's going to have to build and finish that sidewalk connection because we're going to have this sort of missing tooth in the city. Because
isn't that true for all of the properties around? Like none of the properties
But that's the reason we have an annexation policy that says you can't annex and come in and develop commercially and develop in the city unless you're adjacent to the property next door. That's what we call orderly and efficient development.
Which is why they can't annex.
That's the reason they can't annex.
Right.
And letting them come in now and develop as this other use defeats the exact purpose of that.
Despite the fact that all their neighbors also are running commercial operations.
Right. They're existing non-conforming operations. Those weren't approved. None of them were approved under the agreement. That's why we have the agreement, to prohibit exactly this kind of development. It only makes it harder for us to provide for this orderly, efficient development.
I think the concern I have here, and you keep saying the same thing over again like we're not hearing you, just to be clear, I think we all understood what you've said multiple times. But what I think maybe you're not hearing him say, and I concur, is that literally every single neighbor on the whatever side of the property this is on, the Highway 99, is the same commercial use, which means they all will have to come into some type of city compliance and conformance with the city code. So I would assume that when you do annex, and I wish you would hurry up and do it, would require all of them to together create the sidewalk and the sewer line and the water line and the landscaping.
Sure.
True. So if we're doing it all, because they're all except for this particular piece of property the same, what's the problem? Other than there's an agreement that you really stand on, and I support agreements, but I feel like personally the city is being very difficult in the awareness of truth that the neighbors next to Creative Electric are performing commercial uses who will also have to do what I just described: sidewalk, water, sewer, landscape, lights, road, whatever, too. So why is the city, who has been one of our most remarkable partners of all 20 cities in Marion County, I'm just flabbergasted that the two of you are here opposing this based on the truth that these neighbors have the exact same circumstances that they're trying to achieve, and then when annexation happens, they do it all together. Help me understand, other than you repeating the same things that you just repeated, I don't need any comments from the audience, why this is such a problem when you have to have the other neighbors get there too.
This would be allowing it now
Yeah.
when they're coming in. I guess the idea that two wrongs don't make a right might be the
Sure,
simplest
okay.
way to put that out. We'll just continue to make it harder to annex properties and have them develop urban. I guess that's what this would lead to.
Could it have been avoided if the city, when the applicant came and you went through all the processes that you went through, which I fully respect and understand why your processes are important, couldn't you have said to yourself, we're for sure going to annex this in 2 to 5 years. And it's true that all of the neighbors around this are commercial use, even though they're not conforming to your standards. And help them help you get there now without feeling like they're leapfrogging and going outside of a process in a neighborly way. Like, couldn't you have been the bigger like neighbor in this space and said to them, we want to help you do this today, and in order for you to do that, the most successful path forward for the city is to do all these things, or be prepared to do all these things.
To do everything that we require in our code.
Yeah.
Without an annexation.
Madam Chair.
I understand without the annexation. That's
Sure.
coming, but let's pretend it's coming. Why couldn't you have just said to them, we want to get you there, the annexation's in the future. In order for us to support the county to approve this, we want you to do all these things today? Or prepare to do all these things today?
So you're talking about a potential condition that would say, meet all the city standards.
Yes.
Right, when you come in. I understand it. Well,
Okay.
and I need to step back a bit that there's a whole reason that the rezoning application request was denied. Chris can talk about them. Your hearings officer said it doesn't meet any of your requirements. They gave about a dozen different reasons.
Doesn't meet our
So-
requirements?
So, that's right, that's what your hearing officer said, for a variety of reasons. You can walk through all of them. Chris can go through
Yeah,
the
I
others.
did.
I guess it seems odd that I would say, great, you're coming too early. It's a recommendation of denial. It doesn't meet the requirements of the UGA, but I'll sit and talk with you about how we might condition this in the future if we wanted to create it.
Well,
So-
this is what I'm struggling with.
And if you want to create a condition that said that, I guess you could say meet all of our standards.
But here's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
The agreement that you referenced.
Right.
So there's a whole question of how to interpret that agreement. But in the agreement, it says the county shall retain responsibility for regulating land use within the urban growth area.
Sure.
You've said it's not the city's position that the county doesn't have the authority to rezone the property away from urban transition, because that would be ridiculous.
Sure.
Right? So how do we get to a situation where the only way that the county could rezone the property is if the city, in effect, is the land use authority when it's not by statute? Like, I just can't. I have this problem from just a legal perspective, which is the county's the authority. We have the authority to do land use in this area. They're asking us for a rezone. We have the authority to rezone. I don't get it. I kind of, that's where I struggle with the hearings officer's decision. I feel like the hearings officer wanted that agreement to take precedence over state land use law, which I just can't, I can't get there.
So I guess I can speak to that a little bit. It's not that the agreement takes precedence over state land use law. It helps to kind of think back on the background of the agreement. So the agreement came into place in direct response to a periodic review of the city's comprehensive plan from LCDC. I always forget it. Land Conservation Development.
Yeah.
And so it was forced upon the city that we have this remand, that the city and the county come into this agreement in order to be in compliance with statewide goal 14, the urbanization goal. So it's not that they're in conflict. In fact, the agreement was created so that the city and the county would be in compliance with statewide land use planning goals.
I totally understand all that. I think the question is, how do we interpret the agreement? And it seems like the city's position is the only way to interpret it is the county can do a rezone if the city allows it, and if the applicant applies with the provisions of the city's development code if they were annexed, even though they're not annexed. That feels like I have to really tilt my head and squint my eyes to get to that position. Is that not your position?
Not necessarily, no. So I would say that basically every individual application is going to be unique, right? And so we're not saying, oh, the city gets to veto any sort of county land use decision. That would be an absurd position. And we're not saying that in every situation, a potential zone change would be opposed by the city. What we are saying is that we agree with the hearings officer that in this particular instance, the applicant did not meet the criteria under the Urban Growth Coordination Agreement. Their application violated the Marion County Comprehensive Plan, and it violated the city's comprehensive plan. And for those reasons, the rezone is inappropriate. But that doesn't mean that the city would necessarily be against any sort of rezone in the future.
But the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan designates this as commercial.
It designates it as commercial upon annexation. And right now, it's urban transition. And if I could, if you don't mind, just read a little bit of the urban transition zoning requirements. It's very, very clear that the property is currently zoned exactly for what it should currently be zoned for.
Right, but the question is whether it can be rezoned. That's the whole question. So if the Woodburn Comprehensive Plan, upon annexation, would classify this as commercial, if the county has the authority for land use in this area, if it's not disputed the county has the authority to rezone this property from urban transition, how could it possibly violate the comprehensive plan of either Marion County or the city of Woodburn for the county to use its authority that's undisputed to rezone the property from urban transition to a zone that's acknowledged by the city upon annexation? Like, how can that not be under the authority of the county to do that? How could that violate the comprehensive plan of either the city or the county?
So I don't think it's a question of authority. I think it's a question of, in this particular instance with this particular application. The hearings officer didn't say, oh, the county just doesn't have authority to do this. What the hearings officer said is, in this particular instance, the rezoning requirements under the Marion County Code simply aren't met. They also said that the Marion County Comprehensive Plan would be violated based on the way that the applicant has presented their application.
But my recollection of it comes down to my problem, which is that it seems like it's the way that the hearings officer was interpreting this agreement, right? I mean, she basically interprets this agreement to come to those conclusions. Isn't that correct?
Well, yes.
And that gets back
and the county code and the comp plan.
Right, but the issue seems to be what takes precedence when we're thinking about this agreement. How do we interpret this agreement, right? And I said, like, my concern is that it seems like the city's position is that we would have to allow the city to require the applicant to fulfill all the requirements that they would have to meet if they were annexed, but not be annexed by the city. That seems like that's the city's position. And that seems like an anomalous position to me. That seems like that can't possibly be the way that we interpret this.
I mean, I think that is the way that we interpret it for this particular application, but that is not like the way that the city would interpret it overall. The city would look at any individual application that came in that was within the city's UGB, and if it, unlike this application, met the rezoning criteria and was in compliance with the Urban Growth Coordination Agreement, the UGCA, and the city comp plan.
But that's the issue, is what does it mean to be in compliance with this agreement, right? I mean, that seems to be what we're talking about, isn't it?
Sure, yeah, and the applicability of the agreement in general. The applicant argues that the UGCA is just not applicable, and we just fundamentally disagree with that. They portray it as being just simply an IGA, a contract between the city and the county. And we've submitted evidence into the record that that is simply not the case.
Well, I think the question is actually, because there are many situations where we have to coordinate with different state agencies or other governmental authorities in the process of making a decision. So it's not uncommon to have a situation where where you have an agreement that requires you to have some coordination between governments, right?
Correct.
But it's not my position, I don't believe in reading this document, that Woodburn has a veto on the land use authority of the county. That's not, so I think the question is not whether or not this document is relevant. The question is, what does the document mean? And I think my sense is, it doesn't mean the city has a veto. I also don't think it means that, and we've talked about this, every applicant has to meet the full city standards for the county to approve a zone change. It doesn't mean that the county doesn't have the authority to do a zone change. So I think the question is, what does it mean, right?
It means that, I guess, my response to that would be, it means that on land use issues, the city and the county are required to coordinate per the terms of the document. It doesn't mean that either side has a veto. It means that there's a designated coordination process that the city and the county go through for any sort of land use decision that's taking place within the UGB and outside of the city limits. And that based on the terms of the UGCA, that will then determine the outcome.
I think too, it's important to understand the intent of the document, and some of the things that I was talking to legal counsel about is whether or not the interpretation of the IGA creates land use criteria, and whether that was the intention 9 years ago by the county in relationship with the city. And I'd really like Steve to address that, knowing that Scott Norris still works here today, and he was the lawyer that drafted this for the county, and you had those conversations.
Yeah, I did talk with Scott because I saw his signature at the bottom of the IGA, and both he and I agree that our interpretation of the IGA is that it does not create land use criteria that applies to private applicants. It does include things like the city and county giving notice to each other for applications, and all those things have been met in this situation. But by the terms of the IGA itself, our interpretation is that it is not kind of a self-executing land use criteria. I think that the county would have the authority to incorporate the IGA through its comprehensive plan if it chose to do so. And I think there is language within the comprehensive plan that if the board were to choose to interpret it to incorporate the IGA, the board could make that interpretation, but that would be governed by support and deference, and so you have full deference to go either way on that.
Thank you. So I know there's been a lot of back and forth. Before we move on to other things, is there anything you wanted to particularly add as a presentation?
I suppose just, I would point you to your comprehensive plan, which very clearly, it would be ridiculous for the county to have to incorporate every urban growth coordination agreement for all 20 cities, right? But the comprehensive plan does very specifically say that the county has entered into coordination agreements with all of these 28 jurisdictions, and the UGCA is one of those agreements. So to say that the UGCA is simply not applicable to land use decisions, I do believe would be in violation of the county's comprehensive plan.
Help me understand how you believe the UGCA essentially tells us that we shouldn't do what the application is requesting because it's sooner than the annexation the city's prepared to do. I don't believe it does is the point. So I think where we keep going back to this, all of this, is it's sooner than you want. We recognize that. And it's under our land use authority to make this decision on this property that's within our legal control. And the agreement says that we will be partners in the process and provide all the criteria that it says in the agreement, which has been met. So outside of meeting the terms of the expectation that our staff works with your staff, et cetera, we still have the land use authority to decide on this application and still be in compliance with this agreement. It just isn't what is desired, which I openly understand. And so I'm not sure where the argument, I mean, I understand your opposition to it because it's frustrating as far as the timing, but the legal opposition to it is where I'm still stumped. And so I either need you, the lawyer, or this lawyer over here to tell me why this isn't within my purview to do legally, and also a benefit to the resident that I represent in this situation.
I guess our argument is just that we have not been, nor would we argue that it's not within your purview. So
Okay.
we can put that to rest.
Thank you.
We understand that you are the land use authority, and the UGCA clearly lays that out.
Okay.
But the hearings officer very clearly reviewed the UGCA and said there are many elements of this document which simply are not met in this instance. And that document requires that the city's comprehensive plan also be considered. And there are elements of the city's comprehensive plan that are not met by this application.
What are those?
Yeah, I would love it if you
Yeah,
could
what are
break
those?
down the things that you believe she said or she did say versus, and also what the city's comp plan outlines that is not met or suggested to be met.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
And I would love it if it was more clear, but I have like 1,000 pieces of paper up here.
Yes, we understand your record is quite thick, and we
Yeah.
are sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I just want, I think it's faster for you than for me to thumb through.
I'm sure Chris can agree with the hearings officer's arguments. Again, just for what it's worth, they extend beyond just the agreements, right? She clearly found that it didn't meet your comprehensive plan and your rezoning requirements. She even said that it didn't meet goal requirements under the state. So he can walk through the details of it, but it did extend more.
So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, please.
On the hearings officer's order, page 9, the proposed zone change is consistent with the Marion County plan. On page 9, however, is not consistent with the growth management goals and policies of Woodburn's comprehensive plan. So she did say it was
Consistent
with our plan. So just put that to rest on the hearings officer side. As you're searching, Madam Chair, as we're searching for details, just so happens my signature is on this December 23rd, December 2015 order. And I remember this. And the 20-year struggle with Woodburn's urban growth boundary was reprimanded back, however you say that word, back to us. And this document was developed and signed to help Woodburn expand their UGB at that time. Here we are, and I appreciate the conversation, Bruce, that you started out. You know, we've had a great relationship, and I'm going to go back to that. We've had a great relationship. This document was done to help Woodburn get to where you're at today. So us up here going back and forth on this, when we have constituents that will meet any conditions you want to put on, I think they've already outlined several conditions, and you've actually said there may be some more conditions that potentially you would ask them to meet. I personally am sitting here 15 years later almost, right? 10 years later, I guess, December 2015, 10 years later, saying, why are we battling here? We need to help these people get where they need to go. And the city of Woodburn can help that, just as we've helped the city of Woodburn in the past to have Amazon, to have all the things that you've got, to be the fastest growing city. We're not trying to stop that. We want to help that. So, I'm going to have to leave here in about 15 minutes, Madam Chair, for a meeting of, in fact, some people from Woodburn. Your mayor will be there in this meeting upstairs.
Don't tell him about this.
Because he's not watching.
So Madam Chair, I would point you to page 9 of the hearings officer's decision there. They list a number of the Marion County zone change criteria and give thorough reasoning as to why those zone change criteria are not met in this instance. And then on page...
Just a second before you go on.
Oh, sure.
Isn't it true under conditions we can require them to meet these expectations of the plan? The comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Well, and just to be clear, the zone change is consistent with the Marion County plan. Like she says that. The proposed zone change is consistent with the Marion County plan. So I just want to be clear about like what we're saying she said and didn't say. There's no dispute on that, right? It's not about the plan. It's the zone change criteria, correct?
If I may,
Please.
our comprehensive plan references the IGAs. It's really only inclusion in this decision. Because the underlying designation is Woodburn's comprehensive plan, what we're looking at in the zone change criteria for consistency with the underlying land use designation is looking at their plan. So it is consistent with ours, depending on interpretation of the reference to those IGAs.
Okay, so it does come back to the interpretation of the IGA.
Right, so it would be consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, but the county's comprehensive plan requires consistency with the UGCA.
And the interpretation of the UGCA, therefore, determines the outcome of this.
I would say that's accurate, yes.
Okay, thank you. Glad we got there. It took some work, but we got there. Thank you.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, you had asked just for the specific sections of the hearings officer's order.
I got it.
You got it?
Now that I'm on page 9 of the 900 doc pages I have.
I'm sorry about that, yes.
Please don't be sorry. I just think I understand that this is really critical and important, critical to both authorities and the relationship. And I think Commissioner Cameron's remarks are important to note that the county, in my opinion, prior to being a commissioner, is an entity that has leaned hard into any partnership request with any of the 20 cities to help them excel. And Woodburn is the most excelling city we have in Marion County when it comes to growth with strategy and partnership. And so I think when this first came to me, I was quite surprised that we were here over something that feels relatively small in the scale of things that has been partnered on, not just in the last 10 years, but in the last 20 years, because there's a lot of things that the cities need, to partner with the county on to grow the way you've grown. So, I'm just so surprised by it, to be honest.
These little battles matter 10 years from now when
Sure.
we can't get them to annex.
That is,
Because the decision made today is going to have an impact on it. And it might be 2 years from now.
sure.
One of the conditions is they would not object to it.
Yeah, and I completely understand that, and it's hard to predict the future. But I think when you have partners like us who potentially enter into some agreement, we would back that and be your partner in making sure things go about the way they're supposed to go about in that agreement, not abandon the city in its desire to grow. And I think we've got a proven track record to want to help you grow and to overcome hurdles for that growth that, frankly, I don't see any other county in Oregon doing for cities the way we do it. And I'm pretty involved in the other 35 counties of Oregon. So with that, do you have anything else for the record, either of you?
If I could
Please.
put something on the record, one of the things I do all the time is kind of get a feel for the room sometimes. Again, staff has never made recommended conditions of approval. The city staff has never said, these are conditions you should definitely include.
Okay.
If you ask me on the fly what something very critical that I don't see in here would be, I think it would be very important that they meet the frontage requirements that the city of Woodburn would be applying as opposed to the county.
Okay.
At least 20 years from now, it'll look like it kind of went through the city of Woodburn's processes, rather than have that kind of,
Sure.
hold
Thank
on.
you.
It may look like the sidewalk to nowhere for a while.
Right.
Well, you're not suggesting that they do it now, they just comply with it in the future. My question to you in that space is, what does that do to the neighbors? So we have these neighbors who are operating under commercial use that would be non-conforming to your plan.
Right.
Let's just say that we move forward with approving this application and we say that you need to improve the frontage needs based on the city's plan.
Sure.
How do you apply that to the neighbors?
Well, one of those requirements are in our code is
Okay.
to allow a fee in lieu if it's a road to nowhere, it's someplace we don't need today. And that would be an option for them. Again, I know it's a
Oh,
broken.
this is like the sidewalk to nowhere that we dealt with recently with the Marion County Housing Authority.
Right, so we have a code provision that would allow people not to do that.
Okay.
Again, there are literally 100 code provisions they wouldn't meet in the city. It's fine. I'm throwing it out there. I'm saying
I appreciate you,
the
Chris, I
conditions in
do.
here did not come from the city of Woodburn.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm the community development director. They kind of have to, there's a very complicated process to get there. Those
Yeah.
aren't ours.
Okay. Thank you for that. I did write it
Sure.
down. And I understand. All right. Anything else for the record?
I think the only thing else that I would add to the record is the applicant's argument really hinges on this idea that the UGCA is just an IGA. It's not a land use document. And I guess if the board were to interpret it as such, I would have significant concerns about what that means for future development within UGBs. Because if we look at it as just a contract and not as a binding land use document that LCDC required the city and the county to enter into, then those are different things with different enforcement mechanisms and different implications on both the city and county's comprehensive plans. So aside from the applicant's, individual application, the county's interpretation of that is going to have really significant implications on city-county coordination for property development within the UGB moving forward. I can't imagine how it wouldn't.
Okay, thanks for your comments. All right, we don't have anybody else signed up for opposition. So I will go back to the applicant for rebuttal, and hopefully you can keep it relatively brief. Thank you.
Is it possible for you to ask them to hold off for 10 minutes?
There's 20 people up there.
Wendy Killington for the applicant. I'll go as quickly as I possibly can. So I'm delighted by the city saying they would accept this condition because your staff have already drafted it. If you look on the second page of the proposed conditions, K, it says that the applicant shall enter into a non-remonstrance agreement basically for any improvements to 99. So if in 20 years, ODOT or the city want to, have improvements to 99, lickety-split, there they are. This will be the only property that will have already pre-agreed to annex and to do the non-remonstrance. But right now, with 155 feet of frontage and this modest little use, there's no way that the property on its own could afford the $250,000 to, make those improvements. That's the reason why the non-remonstrance condition is suggested, because it gets you the same place. So you don't end up with, things to nowhere. When it's time to develop this area the way ODOT or the city wants to, these guys are standing straight up with their non-remonstrance. We'll participate. We'll do our proportionate share. The city is saying that you do not have authority to rezone unless they consent. That's the only way to read what the city is saying. This is not about this particular application. This is about if anybody goes to develop in the urban growth boundary and the city doesn't like it, they want a veto power. They can't get that for the urban transition zone, but they're trying to make the agreement way more than it is to be an approval standard for a zone change. And LUBA's already decided that merely entering into an agreement does not make it part of your plan. LUBA's already decided that merely entering into agreement doesn't make it an approval standard. So those ships have already sailed. All of the city's concerns have been addressed. The only thing we're not doing is paying fees and lieu and SDCs, and I suspect that that's really the frustration, but as you have pointed out in your back and forth, this property will be in the same position as everybody around it, and will, if it ends up being a non-conforming use, which I don't think it will, because this use is actually permitted in the city's general commercial zone. So please understand that. The city told you that they'll have all of these problems because this property, if it develops the way, under the zone change, the way the applicant wants, why it'll be all of these problems because it'll be a non-conforming use. No, it won't. It's a permitted use in the city's plan, or city's CG zone. I can go through chapter and verse of the IGA and prove to you that there is no requirement in it that this proposal doesn't meet. But I think you have all done that, and I think you're aware of that, and unless you want me to, I'm not going to waste Commissioner Cameron's time, because I'd like him to be here for this vote, and go through it. But the city didn't talk about anything in particular, and that's telling, and that's because this little engine just doesn't pull that requirement. There's no requirement that says you can't do what your code and plans say that you can do. Your hearings officer made some mistakes, for sure. And I would respectfully disagree with staff that there is anything in your plan that makes, or applicable standards, that makes the city's comprehensive plan a relevant approval standard. I would defy you to find that. It doesn't exist, except in, you'd have to really interpret the IGA to say that and then make it a standard, which it's not. But I think more importantly, why would you reach so hard to do that? All of the issues have been addressed. I completely agree with your two legal counsels about the effect of the IGA. This is a completely approvable proposal. It does the right thing. And unless I've missed something, I'm going to shut up and just ask for the order, really. If you can find it in your heart to do so, to approve the proposal, I think you will find that it meets all approval standards. It doesn't hurt the city at all. It actually does what they said at the end they wanted. It provides a mechanism that they're going to get the annexation they want when they want it, connections to their facilities when they want it, non-remonstrance to whatever the street improvements are that are wanted. They get more out of this than they have right now.
Thank you.
Nothing else.
Thank you, Brittany. All right, commissioners. Staff, do you have anything else for the record?
The only comment for the record would be, for the sake of the findings, the adjacent parcel that has been referenced several times as containing a construction business is a house with an accessory structure. And it's important for planning to continue to use that definition based on existing permits.
Okay.
I'm just going to make a really simple motion. You guys can oppose it if you want.
Okay.
Which is, I would move that we close the public hearing and approve the application with the conditions, the staff recommended conditions.
I would actually, I support what you're asking, and I would like your support to have Steve directly work with planning to review the conditions and to make sure that there's everything legal wants in there is in there.
Okay.
That's it.
I've already reviewed the conditions and I'm fine with them. I would ask to participate in drafting of the findings because I think how we draft those findings is very important for this case.
Okay. So I guess I'll amend my motion to allow legal to draft the findings, to also allow legal to draft the findings.
Okay?
Yes.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. The motion passes. I will now adjourn the public hearing and reopen the Board of Commissioners meeting and adjourn for the day.
Good job. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.